Hi, I'm Debbie Hawley, Chairperson of the St. Lucie County School Board. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you to this opportunity to get to know the best of the best. Teachers that have been nominated by their peers for the honor of 2014 Teacher of the Year. Please enjoy this opportunity to get to know them, and I know you will feel as I do, that we are surrounded by wonderful professional educators in St. Lucie County.
Hello everyone, welcome to the 2014 Teacher of the Year for St. Lucie County. Yes, it is 2013, but the Teacher of the Year will be representing the state at the end of the year next year, so that's why we're always like a year ahead. So we're going to be interviewing teachers from our school, so we're glad you could be with us. Our first guest is from Allapattah Flats K-8 school. This is Ann Hartman. She teaches first grade, and her principal, Patty Galloway.
Hi.
Thanks to the both of you for being here today.
Thank you.
And we're starting off with you, and your first name starts with an A and your school starts with an A. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and maybe where you went to school.
Sure. I am originally from Texas, and so spent quite a few years there in Texas. Grew up in Chicago, where it was a lot cooler than we are right now.
Yes.
And believe it or not, teaching wasn't my first career. Actually, I started out in social work.
Okay.
And so that was where I had my aha moment, and that was where I decided that definitely teaching is what I wanted to pursue. With the children that I visited with my social work degree, I was visiting schools, and when I was there at the schools developing treatment plans to help out students that were having some difficulties, that was when I was watching the teachers and going, this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
This is my true love. This is where I want to be, and helping out those children. And
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, you know, as a teacher, you do a little bit of social work all the time anyway.
Absolutely.
You know? And your experience during those years, I'm sure, enhances your ability to, you know, reach a student who may be having some issues, or maybe some issues at home, or, you know, and you can probably pick up perhaps a learning disability, maybe a mild learning disability, more quickly than someone who doesn't have your experience.
Yes.
Would you say?
Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely. And one of the big things I pride myself on, and would be in my classroom, is that I like to establish a very safe, nurturing environment for those students. I do teach first grade, and so in first grade they still do need a lot of nurturing, and just to be able to watch them blossom and grow, and with having that mental health background with social work, it really does seem to help out with picking out some behaviors and having some behavior management strategies to help those children feel successful at our school and in my classroom.
Well, Miss Galloway, you must think you got two teachers for one. You know, you got your money's worth in this young lady here.
Absolutely. It's definitely a unique environment when you go into Miss Hartman's room, and the background that she brings is very evident. She's got a very safe environment for her kids, and there's a really good social network among her students and even her parents. So it definitely is a unique environment that she's created.
What would you say is the most challenging part of being a first grade teacher, and it might be the same thing as the most rewarding?
And that's exactly just like you said, Ms. Karst. It's the most challenging, but at the same time it often brings the most rewards, just because it is a challenge. It is something that I think we all would struggle with as teachers, and that would be in my classroom. There's so many different personalities being in first grade, and I also have some of the ESE children in my classroom, and so I have a lot of different behaviors, a lot of different learning profiles, different learning styles, and so I pride myself in a lot of differentiation in our classroom, just to make sure that every kiddo and every student in my classroom is successful.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
And when you say different learning styles, help our audience understand, what do you mean by that?
Sure. A lot of the kiddos, when they come in, some might be real visual learners, where they're able to, they need to actually be able to see it. Some might be where there are lots of other different styles, and to be able to find out what interests are going to be able to engage them and make them want to pursue learning about that certain subject, you know. So it's really neat to kind of come in and take a peek and see what's going on.
So if they're like a kinesthetic learner, they would be like the math manipulatives, that kind of thing.
Right, actually
Yeah.
some hands-on learning, things like that.
And that's one of the things I see in Anne's classroom is that differentiation, and it almost happens seamlessly, is that a child has a particular need and the child is working with tools that will help them at their level. And in a first grade classroom, you have children that come in reading fluently, and you have children who are still struggling with their letters and their numbers. And she has that ability to really move seamlessly from group to group and meet the needs of those kids.
And with your parents, the parents of your children, what are some of the kind of hints and things that you help them with to help their children?
Absolutely. I really pride myself again also on making sure that we're all a team. And that's something that they'll hear me in conferences, they'll hear me in meetings with the parents, and that's something at the beginning of the year that I want them to feel comfortable to come and talk to me. Because if there might be an issue going on in the home, then they can come and talk to me. If they're having behavior problems at home, then I can talk with them about strategies. I like to talk to them about what their child is really good at. Again, those learning styles. I send home those math manipulatives with those kiddos at home so they can work with their child at home. And when I invite them in for a conference, be able to kind of show them and model for them some of the different strategies. And so I'd like to really work with the parents as a team and have us work together to make each child successful. And I like to take information from them, and they like to take information from me because we're working together.
Well, and as we know that out of the hours that a child is awake, only 1 of 6 are they in school. So that partnership is really important. It extends that learning time.
Right.
We recently held student-led conferences, and so speak a little bit about how your students prepared for those conferences with their families and what they were able to present.
Sure, absolutely. It's great. And even just being in first grade, we were able to talk about the kids before we take an assessment. They have a goal as far as where they would like to score on our assessment, some of the skills that we're working on, and then we take the assessment and then we actually graph it where they actually did score. They have a little portfolio. Little first grade have a little portfolio of all their work. And so we did invite the parents in, and this was all led by the students. Even our little first graders were able to sit down with their parents and tell them, these are my strengths and these are my weaknesses, and this is what Mrs. Hartman and I are working together on to get me to where I need to be, where I need to reach that goal. And they were able to actually show their parents their work and what they're working on, and it was really a fabulous experience.
A 6-year-old child able to explain to their parents what they're learning. How did the parents respond to that?
I had lots of great responses from the parents.
Because that would have been the first one they've done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And overall, the parent responses were so positive, especially with the new grading for our primary students, because it really gave parents a very clear picture on what does a 1, a 2, a 3 actually mean, because they were able to see that calibration of their students' work against what was the expectation. So it was very successful and very positively received.
I really, in looking at that trend grading, was looking at it like, well, that makes a lot of sense, because rather than averaging out everything as a child comes in, especially in first grade when they're just learning skills, they're not going to perhaps not be able to read, fluently. And so they would, get a 1 then, but maybe 2 months later they'd be at a level 3.
Absolutely.
So, they'd average to be a 2, but they really are a 3 right now. I think that's a great way of going about assessing, students and their work. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, and the children, we've been working hard with the children so they know exactly what is going to, with that new trend grading, what makes them a 2, what makes them a 3, and then to have those children explain that clearly to the parents, that really, really made a difference, I feel like, this year, and helped a seamless transition to the trend grading.
I think it also reinforces that all students don't learn at the same rate.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter how long it takes them to get to that end result, as long as we all get there. But we may be at different rates of speed. So it really has been very positive in reinforcing that with families.
Well, change is always difficult. Some more than others can adapt to change, but I really do think it benefits the student as much as and that's again what we're all about.
Yes.
Yeah. So for your students, they come in at varying levels. By the time that they leave first grade, what is it that you really want to make sure that they're strong enough in that they can continue on to second grade?
Sure. What I would be looking for, again, is that reader who's fluent, who also we want to make sure that they have that comprehension piece. Not only can they read fluently, but they're understanding what they're reading. Because as we know, as changes are coming along with the new FCAT preparation and stuff like that, that's going to be coming out in the upper grades, our first graders right now are going to be some of the first ones to pilot the new
The Common Core standards.
the Common Core standards, and we really want to make sure that not only are they good readers, but they're understanding what they're reading, and they can really take those pieces apart and have the evidence to be able to prove that this is where I pulled it from the text, and this is where it says, and using those inferences. And so first grade has really changed a lot
Yes, it
since I
has.
was a kid. For us, for what we're expecting of them, and
Right.
and I give them a lot of credit because we put a lot of comprehension and strategies and pieces, and they're just running with it. They are like little sponges. They are absorbing it, and it's such a great feeling to be able to watch them grow and really move up those scales like we're seeing right now.
One of the greatest changes that I see is also the writing piece, because there are great writing demands on first graders, which we have never seen before. But being able to express not only orally, but in written form.
Well, and to be able to also apply that knowledge that they've learned in an everyday setting.
Right.
Something that they're... What do they like to read in first grade? I mean, it's not see Dick run, run Jane run, like when we were in school. It's more complex, I'm sure.
Right. Well, for a lot of my boys, Fly Guy is a very popular series. Fly Guy is a very popular series. For my girls, Junie B. Jones, those kind of chapter books, they like that. Henry and Mudge is also very popular. They love the picture books, and what they really like to find is that whether I'm introducing a nonfiction science piece to them or a fiction book, once I read it and I'm excited about it and I put it over on that bookshelf, it's a race to get there. Who can get to that book first? And they're so anxious to read it and to hear them read it with expression and talk with each other about the funny parts and what they might like, and have them, like you were mentioning, relate it to themselves. It's really an awesome thing to watch. It really,
I bet it
really
is.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Galloway, when you visit Ms. Hartman's classroom, tell me what you see.
Well, first of all, you see a lot of energy. There's a high energy, yes, very high energy classroom. Kids who are at the edge of their seat, kids who participate vibrantly in the classroom, a very good social network, very respectful to one another. When they move in and out of groups, it's done seamlessly. See just a lot of activity, lots of different activities going on. There's always something different to look at everywhere you go. So it's a vibrant, fun room to go to, and there's a lot of learning going on. Kids can express what they're learning.
Right.
So it's a wonderful place. Happy, smiling faces.
Well, I know that Ms. Hartman must be very valued as an asset at your school, because she was elected at a different school as Teacher of the Year. So, it's evident, talking about evidence, it's evident that your peers appreciate you as well. Now, is this your first year at Allapattah?
No, this would be my third year at
Your
Allapattah.
third year at Allapattah. Okay.
And in 3 years, she has made herself invaluable because she is so committed to the school environment. She's a trainer for many of our literacy programs, and so she's involved at many different levels in terms of school leadership. She's a department head, grade level chair, and contributes greatly. So she is an asset.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, do you think you'd ever want to teach at a different grade level? I mean, Allapattah Flats is a K-8 school, but I don't know how many first grade units you have there.
We have 5.
5, okay. Would you like to maybe teach another grade level, or you really like first grade?
I really like first grade. I really
Okay.
do. I really enjoy first grade. There's so much growth happening in first grade that
Well, you see that light bulb going on.
yes, that light bulb is constantly going on, and they're so excited, and they're so willing to learn, and they want to please, and they just want to be there, and they are so excited, and they just have such sweet personalities. And at this moment, I love first grade.
Yeah.
I could see, maybe later on moving up with them, but for right now, they're just such a sweet, tender age, and they're just
good.
so excited, and I'm just so thankful that I'm there with them and able to coach them along and be their biggest fan. And
Well, that's good, and they're fortunate to have you too, Ms. Hartman. It's nice to see you again, and always good to see you, Ms.
Thank
Galloway.
you.
We're going to be right back with another one of our Teachers of the Year, so please stay tuned.
Here comes Susan Butcher, shattering her own record. Congratulations.
And welcome back. And now with us from Bayshore Elementary is Katie Aguiar. She is a second grade teacher at the school, and also her principal, Lori Reed. Thanks for the both of you for taking the time to come and chat a little bit with us and get the community to know our teachers. So welcome and congratulations for being
Thank you.
nominated by your peers. Tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you went to school, and we were just saying that you were in a different career previous to 6 years ago.
I'm originally from Virginia, Chesapeake, Virginia. I was born and raised. We came down here. My husband got a new job after he did not re-enlist in the U.S. Navy. When we moved down, I saw that there was a huge, I used to be in banking, and I saw that there was a huge shortage of teachers. And I found the EPI program at IRSC, and I decided that that's what I was going to do. I always wanted to be a teacher, so that's where I made my decision.
Yeah, well, that's great. So how different would you say is, and you were doing construction loans, that kind of
Yes.
business versus dealing with 25 7-year-olds all day?
Teaching is definitely harder work.
I would say.
It's never the job's never done, and it's constant worrying, constant trying to find some new way of teaching. It's not the everyday go to work and go home, and it's a constant job.
Yeah, it's a constant job. Do you find any of your experiences in banking that are applicable to teaching?
Well, math. Math. We can. Math.
Customer service?
Customer service, definitely with parents. I have lots of parents that that need that tender loving care, just like
Right.
a customer doing customer service.
Right,
So
right, and also budgeting.
yes,
That budgeting of time and other resources as well.
yes.
Well, good. So, did you choose second grade, or did second grade choose you?
Second grade kind of chose me. My son was in second grade the previous year before I decided to go to teaching, and I knew I loved it. I knew the children are still love their teachers. They aim to please you, and they work so hard, and it's a great grade.
Right. Now, and you told me that you have an inclusion class now?
Yes.
So, help our audience understand, what does that mean when you have if your class is considered an inclusion classroom?
Well, we have regular ed students along with students with disabilities in our classroom, and we have ESE teachers that come in and support those students in reading and in math. So we get that support as well as the students.
How do you think that benefits both sides of the equation, the students who have the disabilities and those that don't?
The students that don't, they learn acceptance. It's amazing how when the students first come in the classroom, the students do notice there is a difference in some of them, and the students, after a while, they just become their friend, and it's the acceptance that the regular ed students have.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's a life lesson that, is applicable for the rest of their life.
Yes, it sure is.
Well, Ms. Reed, when you visit Kay's classroom, what is it that you see?
Absolutely wonderful things. All of her students are always engaged in all of the work that she does. She's really embraced the Marzano St. Lucie County framework, and she's really working very closely with her colleagues as well. So working in her classroom with her learning goals and her scales, and then having colleagues come into her classroom and providing professional development for them as well, so they can see the outstanding things that she's doing in her classroom.
So she's modeling for other teachers
Yes,
as well.
she is. Yep.
And
she
I
is.
think that you're a team leader, I think you said?
I'm a team leader, yes, and a mentor.
And a mentor.
Yes.
So you're teaching all the time?
All the time.
7-year-olds, 40-year-olds?
Actually, I see myself as a teacher, teaching all the time. But I'm a learner. I'm a lifelong learner. The best teachers are the teachers that have been teaching for many years. You can go on their websites, their blogs. They're just talking with them. How do you teach a certain subject? How do you do this? What's the best way? This child is not getting this specific problem. How can I better teach them? So yes, that's what I enjoy, collaborating.
Yeah. Collaborating.
Yes.
Okay. As a team leader, I would imagine that really is the biggest part of what you do, is collaborating and seeing and bringing out the best in the other members of your team.
Yes. I have all of us have our different strengths and I love going to the teachers. I have one teacher on my team that's just amazing with math, and that's where I go when I have all my problems. Another teacher that has this creative sense that for science and social studies. So that's where, and it's enjoyable, and it's also challenging.
When you get the students that come to you from first grade, do you find yourself having conversations with their first grade teacher to kind of give you a heads up or a
I do,
running start?
especially those students that are just maybe lagging or that need that a little push. I find out where their background and what works and what they've tried, so I can start off on something else. I found a lot of times that students have different rapports with different teachers. So sometimes I don't use a lot of the stuff the teachers used before. I try to do my own, and it sometimes works and sometimes doesn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what it's all about. It's a learning curve all the time.
And it's amazing how children change from first grade to second grade and the maturity level.
Right. So what are the skills that you want to make sure by the end of second grade? And of course now with trend grading, it changes things a little bit. But what are the skills that you want to make sure that the children, when they leave your classroom, that they're able to do?
Well, second grade is a lot of comprehension, fluency, and they're taking the FCAT next year, which is always scary for a teacher because they're still children, and you know that that's such a big thing in their life, and sometimes they don't realize how big and what it means. So I work on comprehension. The comprehension skills, fluency, making sure that they can read the passage because they're timed.
Let's say in math, obviously they...
Oh, we're working on, regrouping. Subtraction and addition with regrouping right now, counting money and time.
Wow, that's a lot for second grade. I remember second grade learning to tell time in second grade. So, so what are the kind of other assets that Kay brings to Bayshore Elementary?
She is just kind-hearted, and the parents that she has absolutely adore her. Past parents and current parents as well. She's very soothing with her parents. We, as all of us are parents, we always worry about our children no matter what, and she really keeps a family atmosphere in her classroom, which is a very welcoming place for everyone to be. She's always there. I'm always telling her it's time to go home. And that she really does, and she does that with her colleagues as well, with her students, her colleagues, just sweet and helpful and family and genuine. She genuinely truly cares about her children.
And it comes across in what you're saying, and I will say when you're talking about them, your eyes just light up.
They're mine when they're not with their mothers.
I know. So speaking of lighting up, what is it, if you can explain how that feels when you see that light bulb go on, and especially a student who may have been struggling with some kind of skill.
Yeah, I have this student in my class who's come to me, and he's my biggest challenge. It's he doesn't want to be in school, and he has this, and that's my biggest challenge is how do you turn on a light bulb? How do you engage a child that doesn't know how to engage himself? So that's my biggest challenge, and when that light bulb goes off, it's amazing. I know I've done my job.
Well, and I don't know, I'm certainly not a sociologist, but maybe he doesn't enjoy coming to school because he hasn't been successful in that.
And that's the thing, and that's my job. And my children know that when they come to my classroom that they have no idea what to expect. I make sure that every lesson is engaging. We do projects, and we do hands-on, and we're doing something different every day to make sure that they want to come. So that's how I try to do it.
Well, I will bet, Ms. Reed, that sometimes when you might be having not the best day possible, that if you were to walk into Ms. Aguiar's classroom, it would brighten your day.
It does, and she's right down the hallway from me now. So it actually does. It's so warm and welcoming, and so organized as well too. And her students really, they just love being in her classroom.
Well, we have to be there for a long time, and I'm there from open to close, so I might as well make it feel like home.
Well, that's very nice. Very nurturing of you as well. And I imagine at the end of the school year, maybe some don't want to leave your classroom because they come to feel so comfortable
Well, I
there.
don't want them to leave.
And they've been successful. But fortunately for you, that they're at that school, if they stay at Bayshore, you'll see them for, 3 more years after
Yeah,
they leave
and
your
it's
class.
amazing to follow them and see how well they do
Yeah.
throughout the year.
That's a lot of fun. I would think that would be just as rewarding as when they're with you, is to watch
is.
them
It is.
matriculate.
It is, because I know it's a reflection of me and their parents, and that's a success that we both share.
Absolutely. So, and speaking of the Marzano framework, can both of you kind of just explain to our audience a little bit about what that is and how different is it from perhaps how we've approached education in the past?
Well, the St. Lucie County framework is based off of Marzano's research. Research for over the past probably 40 years in education, and looking at high yield strategies for teachers to be able to use. Looking at learning goals and scales, how to engage students, creating an environment that's nurturing for students, and there's elements that teachers look at, and using those strategies. It's really it's a great opportunity for students to be responsible for their learning as well.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
When we talk
Tracking
about
for
learning goals and different strategies that are really successful, and they've proven to be beneficial for students to be able to use.
That's very well said. Very well said. I know that I couldn't describe it like that, but unfortunately, I'm not at a school, so I don't see it in action as much as you get to there. But I know that it's extremely challenging, and just teaching in general is.
And in second grade, we do a lot of tracking and making goals and tracking their success, and that's what we do a lot in second grade.
And I know you haven't done student-led conferences yet, but that's kind of what, from what I understand, they're about, is about charting your progress, and what's so amazing is to have the child explain it to their parent.
Yes,
Yeah, but you do that in conferences anyway, I would
we sure
imagine.
do.
Yeah.
She does. I walk in her classroom and they all have their notebooks out with their learning scales, and they can describe to me what they're doing in their classroom.
Well, that's what that's all about,
Yep.
and hopefully they can do that with their parents as well, rather than getting the typical response, what did you learn today in school? Nothing.
Yes.
But second grade probably is not there yet. They're not there yet.
No, they have a lot to say when they go home.
Well, listen, thank you so much. It's been a delight to get to know you.
Oh, thank you.
Again, congratulations for representing Bayshore Elementary. And thank you, Ms. Reed, for coming by.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. We're going to be right back with another Teacher of the Year, so please stay tuned.
My cell phone number and John's cell phone number. Hey, pretty. And the number of the restaurant where we're going to be. And I've left you my pager number too, just in case, because you never know. John, you have the gift?
The odds of a babysitter calling
Now, listen, I also
911,
told the neighbors that you were gonna
1
be
in
here, so if
1400.
anything should happen, please don't hesitate.
The
to
odds of a
call.
child being diagnosed with autism, 1 in 150. You know the odds of autism. Now learn the signs. Go to autismspeaks.org.
And welcome back. And now we have from C.A. Moore Elementary School, Heather Gray, who teaches third grade at the school, and also Principal Felicia Nixon. Thanks to both of you for giving us your time today and introducing Heather to the community that many of you probably already know you. But so let's talk a little bit about you. I understand that you were in media before you became a teacher.
I was in Tallahassee for a couple of years.
Did you work on a newspaper or television station, or?
I worked at a television station after college and wrote for the newspaper during college.
Oh, wow. So what made you decide to cross over into education?
When I worked in media, I didn't feel like at the end of the day what I was doing really mattered, and I love kids, so I have a lot of teachers in my family, so I guess I was always kind of pulled in that direction.
Well, and you're right. It is the most rewarding of careers, and because I know sometimes if I'm not having a very good day, or the media have not been kind, I'll just go to an elementary school, and just makes you remember why you're in this profession to begin with. So, so how many years have you been teaching?
This is my 8th year.
Okay.
Here in St. Lucie County.
Here in St. Lucie County?
Yes.
And I know you're from Pennsylvania.
I am.
And so I guess you came south to go to college and just stayed.
My whole family moved here right before I went to high school. I went to high school in Jupiter.
Okay. All right.
And went to Florida State for college, so I've been down here since.
Good for you. And then you just moved back down this way after college? After you finished working in the
After I
media?
finished. My parents are in the Stewart area, so I came this direction until Mrs. Nixon got her claws into me.
Were you at Longwood with her?
I was.
Yeah, and then you just followed her over. There are several teachers that have done that. You know, you must have a rapport with them. So tell me, what with third grade? I mean, that's a very difficult. It's a benchmark grade. Do you find that there's extra pressure? Do you feel that the students feel because it's the first time taking FCAT, or?
I think some of the students come in with some apprehension knowing that it's FCAT year, but I think it's our job as teachers to say, you'll be ready, don't worry about it.
Because it's just about skills, you know, and being able to, hone them enough to do well. What would you say is the most important skill that you as a teacher of third grade students, that it's important that by the end of the year they've mastered or come close to mastery?
Reading comprehension.
Comprehension. Not necessarily fluency.
Well, the fluency, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
they have to be able to read at a decent rate to get through the story to be able to comprehend. So they go hand in hand.
Right. So, Ms. Nixon, when you visit Ms. Gray's classroom, I think I'm probably going to know what you're going to say. What do you see? What do you feel? What do you hear when you visit Ms. Gray's classroom?
Well, Ms. Gray's classroom is the first classroom on the third grade hallway. And when you visit her room, you feel a warm, inviting atmosphere. Her room is filled with books, and she does a wonderful job of blessing books and sharing books and the love of books with her students. She knows how to motivate them, so you'll hear her motivate her students to read and encourage them, and she takes time to do the research on the book, and she reads the book before sharing it with the kids, and she knows what they're interested in. She knows that this child is interested in animals, this child loves the fairy tales, and she knows how to provide them with the genre that they're interested in. So you just see a warm, friendly, bubbly teacher.
That's what I was thinking you were going to say.
Yeah, very bubbly.
Big smile.
Very enthusiastic, very warm and inviting, and kids just love Miss Gray. They really do. And the teachers as well.
Yeah, well, obviously they've nominated her to represent them. So what was the most difficult part of switching careers? I mean, because as a producer in television and as a writer, it's quick paced. I mean, you have to do something new every day. Whereas in teaching, it's the long goal sometimes. So have you had to kind of shift gears? Or, I mean, every day is a challenge, of course.
That's true.
So that's the same. Every day is a challenge. But, the outcome's a little different.
You're not as rushed. You're not meeting a deadline every hour, every day. But you are meeting a deadline every day, every week, especially every week when you have a target skill that you're working on. And, it's important to show them that this is where you were on Monday, but look where we are today on Friday.
Well, and I think one of the things that I'm sure you get across to your students is how important accuracy is when you're in the media and you're reporting and you're talking about activities of the day or things that are going to happen. You have to be right, or you should be right. I won't get opinionated here, but yeah, you have to know how to make sure that you research the right places and you get the right information. So you can kind of translate that skill over to teaching.
To prove yourself before you go on the air, you want to double check everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as a producer, it was your responsibility to get those resources and make sure that, I'm not exactly sure what a TV producer does in terms of commercial. I know what we do here, but it's a little different. So is there anything about that career that you miss versus what you're doing now? Like you actually hit the nail on the head that what you're doing is an investment. I mean, it's very important.
No, I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Well, that's fantastic. Are there any other things that you do besides, being a third grade classroom teacher in terms of teams or things like that you work with other teachers?
I co-chair the PBS for our school, which is a big initiative, and we've seen that make a huge difference.
I'll bet.
So, I work collaboratively with teachers from every grade. I also am the coordinator for the yearbook for the school.
Okay.
So that's a fun activity for me to do.
No wonder Miss Nixon wanted you to come with her from her previous school. You wear many hats.
But in the classroom is where I I love to be is with my kids. So I couldn't wait to see them today after break.
Oh, that's true. They've been gone for what, 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks. And any changes that you in third grade? You know, they're starting to be a little bit older children. They're not quite as needy.
I was excited to see the enthusiasm they had. They had a winter packet because I wanted them to be reading over break.
Right.
And out of 14 students, 10 returned their packets completed today.
Fantastic.
So I was very excited. I like to
that's
instill,
awesome.
you know, the reading, and some of them, instead of taking 2 chapter books, asked if they could take 4 home over the 2-week break, and they finished them.
Wow.
So I'm excited.
Well, obviously you've instilled, as Ms. Nixon was saying, a love of reading to them and the importance of it, but they enjoy it. They could be doing lots of things that
Right.
than reading. And 4 chapter books is a lot.
In
over
2 weeks?
that 2-week period.
I wish I had time to read 4 chapters.
I know. So third graders, they do have the FCAT. They, you talked about reading comprehension and how important that is. And then probably also, as you're getting ready for 4th grade, because writing is so important.
Yes.
You must really start in this time of year, I guess, or all the time?
All the time, but
Yeah.
we start to concentrate a little more focused now in their writing and getting them ready for that.
Yeah, because it's big.
It is big.
And one of the things that I have noticed over the last, 6 or 7 years is how our writing scores have improved. And I think it is because of the focus that teachers, especially 3rd grade, has to prepare the children for the 4th grade. Because you can't just learn something like that overnight. It just doesn't happen.
That's one of the things that I'm fortunate to have taught. Last year I taught 4th grade.
Oh, okay.
And this year I'm back in 3rd. I've taught 3rd previously. I've taught 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So it gives me the knowledge of where they're coming from and where they head to.
Right.
And I feel that helps me to plan and know where I need to get them to go into 4th grade. What would have helped, or, you know.
Exactly. Now, what about the parents, when you work with the parents? What are some of the kinds of things that you suggest that they do with their children to, improve their reading or just their skill levels? I mean, there's only 1 out of 6 hours that they're awake that they're at school. So there's a lot of other time for influence.
Well, we do a lot with sight words. And so we have grade level sight words, and they're always working on wherever they are and trying to learn their sight words as well as to spell their sight words, which of course will turn around and help in their writing as well.
Of course.
So that's a big initiative that we have at the school that I bring the parents in and go over the sight words, and we have days where it's bring your parent to school
I
day.
saw that. Their picture was in the paper. That was great. Yeah.
And we have a fantastic turnout. So I was very excited that the parents took an interest and really wanted to know what they could do. We do a lot with, last year I did an action research project. And
explain what that is.
Action research is something where I took a wondering.
Okay.
And I said, I wonder if I really look at chapter books across all the genre levels, and I read out loud to them, but they have a copy of the book themselves to track.
Right.
So that it wouldn't matter if it was on their level or not, because
Gotcha.
they were listening to the fluency and having me discuss it as we read, calling attention to different things, different writing styles we called attention to because I was in 4th last year. But then we, go over comprehension as we read. And I wondered if that would, help to raise their reading and their writing scores, and it did.
Oh, great.
So I was very excited to do that in my class last year. And I like to do projects. We have done this year in 3rd grade Charlotte's Web, which is a favorite of mine. So we did it, we read it together the same way, and then the children had to do a diorama. And they took home a shoebox, and they had a couple weeks to do it. And then
this is in 3rd grade?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they brought it in.
I'm used to that in like 7th grade.
They decorated it however they wanted. But the idea was they had to pick their favorite part from the beginning, a favorite part from the middle, and a favorite part from the end, and stand in front of the class and explain what they did. And they did that in front of their parents. The parents came that day.
Wow.
So that was exciting.
Of
the
course.
kids enjoyed it, even the ones who were shy.
Yeah. Now, Ms. Nixon, is that an idea you brought from someplace else, or was it just something that the faculty came up with?
No, that was a Heather Gray original.
Oh, the Parent Day? Or you mean the diorama?
This was in addition to the school-wide Parent Day. Ms. Grace provided parents with an invitation, and she provided the refreshments, and she called the parents. She did a written invitation as well, and the parents came out. They came out, and one thing that we've learned about our parents is that when we invite them and include them and make sure that they feel invited and that we provide them with a warm, friendly atmosphere, just as Miss Gray does every day, they come. And they came, and they were very attentive as the students stood before the class to provide their own presentation, and the kids were really proud of themselves.
Of course.
It was just a moment of pride. It was an awesome day for our students.
Well, and having parental involvement, as you know, I'm preaching to the choir here, but I mean, it impacts students' achievements so much, so positively. And,
That's right.
You know, especially if they haven't maybe been successful, but are being successful at school, you know, and maybe have just hit it right with the right teacher, you know, relationship. So, well, congratulations for your original idea.
Well, thank you. I like to make it fun.
Yeah, well, it sounds like, and it sounds like what Miss Nixon was saying when she goes in your classroom, that it is fun, but there's a lot of learning going on there. So, well, congratulations again for representing C.A. Moore.
Thank you very
much. And thanks to both of you for spending time with us today. And we're going to be right back with another teacher, so please stay tuned.
Baseball has rules, and the players know they have to follow the rules to win. My job is simple. All I have to do is politely remind them of the rules and call them as I see them. So now, I'm politely reminding you. Use your safety belts and a sober designated driver. You might just find yourself at the series, because responsibility, like following the rules, has its rewards.
Visit your ballpark's designated driver booth or go to teamcoalition.org to learn how to win tickets to the series.
And welcome back. And now we have with us from Dale Casson's Education Complex, Cheryl Ellison. She's a social studies teacher for 9th and 10th grade students there. Yes. And also principal, director, lady with lots of hats, Ellen Harden. Thanks to both of you for taking the time to come chat with us and have our public get to know you. So, as before we were taping, you were chatting, and you were a principal or administrator in Tennessee.
That's correct. I originally from Illinois, central part of Illinois, and I taught high school special ed there for 9 years.
Okay.
My husband's job took us to outside of Nashville, and I taught high school special ed also there, and for about 21 years.
Wow.
And then, somewhere around in there. And then I did assistant principal at a pre-K through 8 school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You've been across the board then.
Yes, we had like 942 students with, with 113 employees. And so it was the principal and assistant and I, or just assistant, me.
Yeah.
And so we had our hands full.
Yeah, you did.
And then my husband and I decided to move on down south to Florida, and our family is all here in Florida. And so I've been here 2 years, and I love it.
Well, good for
so
you.
I love teaching at Dale Casson's.
Yeah. Well, it's a special place, and it's one of our alternative schools.
Right, it is.
And so you have to have special skills, I would think, and sensitivities and things like that.
Right.
But there's a lot going on over there. Every time I go over and visit a classroom, I'm amazed at the success that you have.
Well, what I like about Dale Casson's is that they try to fit the educational needs to the child instead of the other way around.
Oh, okay.
And they have several different programs that they can do that with for the students. And that's what I love, because that's what we need to, because I want the students to become successful members of the community, and that's how you can do that, is they need to feel successful and be successful.
Right.
And I think that's one of the ways we can do that.
Well, and sometimes it just takes that right person to click with a student, just at the right time, and sometimes it might not happen until 9th grade or 10th grade, but that when that one teacher clicks with the student, and I'll bet you do that a lot with your students.
I hope I do. I'd like to, yes. I feel like my room is friendly, and that's what I want, welcoming all the new students, because I know they're scared, when they first come into a new environment.
Sure.
But I want them to feel successful, because once a student feels successful, they usually do the best work that they can. And that's what I love, about that.
Well, tell me, what do you see when you visit Ms. Ellison's classroom?
Well, I want to say that she hit the nail on the head, and you did too when you said relationships with children. When I look at someone to hire for Dale Casson's, I look first at their heart. They have to really have a passion for children and a true caring, and they have to like kids in order to really be there. And that's what I see with Cheryl. When you walk in her room, I mean, the kids love her. Last year she taught 9th through 12th grade, and the kids that she had that are still with us want to have her class, because you walk in there and you're transported to whatever they're studying. And she uses a lot of technology. She uses a lot of fun creativity with response pads, so there's a little competition in there as well. But if she's talking about anything, there's usually some type of sound or visual or something that gets their interest and piques their interest, and then they delve into the information about it, and they're working in groups and they're discussing the issues, and there's a lot of communication and a lot of teamwork and a lot of rapport. And she knows all of her children. And if any of them are doing anything that she does not like, she puts her mama hat on. And she's like, well, we're not going to do that here. And they don't ever do it again. But it's a pleasure. Her classroom is always, I love to go in there. She's always, you walk in at any point in time and you've got all of the children engaged in what they're doing. And no matter what they're studying, you know there's going to be some kind of twist that really can keep their interest.
Right.
And I just very much enjoy going in her room.
I think it's probably that old saying that students don't care what you know until they know that you care. And they obviously know that you care about them.
Absolutely. That is so true. So true. Absolutely true.
And teaching social studies, I mean, that's about relationships, that's about human beings, interaction, and so it is one of those things that probably, when they do have discussions about issues, I imagine it would help them also in dealing with their own relationships and how they interact with other students and talk about, I don't know how far back in history you go, but things that happen about and how, why did Rome decline? I mean, things like that.
Absolutely. And what the students realize is that we study about the history centuries ago, and they realize that in the news today, this is the cause of it from centuries ago, and they're just amazed, and they're like, wow, is that why they're still fighting today?
Right.
Like over...
Like in the Middle East?
Yes, in the Middle East, and they did not realize that it started centuries ago. And then, of course, they didn't realize about the split of the Catholic Church with the Lutheran Church, and, we were discussing that today. And they really had some very good questions, and they didn't quite they didn't know that, and understand that. So it's kind of, and that's what I enjoy, is that aha moment, that they really get into that and ask those good questions and like, oh, is that why it is?
Right.
So, and they pay attention to the news, and sometimes they're up on it a little bit more than I am, and so I have to stay up with them, so I can stay ahead of them. But yes, it's that aha moment. But you're right, you've got to show those students that you care, that you're interested in your topic, that you really love it. And I do. I love history. And I know whenever I was teaching U.S. history, a lot of my family has been in the different wars, the Civil War, World War II, World War I, and I would tell them the stories that I knew from my family, and they're like, "My gosh, no wonder you're a history teacher." So because I have a lot of background with my my relatives.
Right.
So.
That was the same with my high school history teacher. Was that she had relatives that were at the Battle of Bull Run and Appomattox and things like that, and she, although obviously they didn't tell her what it was like in person, still there's stories that lead on the family. I'm curious as if any of them have gone to see Lincoln.
Not yet. I haven't asked them, and maybe they have, but and really I have not gone to see it.
I haven't either,
yet.
but I want to.
Right. And of course, when I came originally from Illinois, I was only about an hour away from Springfield, so we'd always go for field trips over to Springfield to see all the Lincoln history. Very interesting.
And what is interesting is from what I've been told, the movie is about how they got that whole legislative process done, which is kind of like what was happening with us here recently in Congress. So a lot of wrangling, a lot of but it's about the people behind the story. So that's what I have been told, and I would really like to go see it. Just won't be anytime soon. So when the students leave you in the 10th grade or whenever they're not in your classroom anymore, the time that you do spend with them, what are some of the, not only the educational skills and knowledge that you want to have, but what else do you want to make sure that you help them be a productive member of society?
Right. What I hopefully I teach them the love of learning. I display all my diplomas on my wall, and I have my educational specialist degree, and I display all of mine. You know, I went to junior college, then I got a double bachelor's degree, and one in psychology and then one in education.
Oh, wow.
And then I got my master's, and then of course my educational
got your money's worth
specialist.
with her.
Right.
I'm very happy about this.
And so I've got them all displayed, even my high school diploma. And so I always tell them that, you know, my mom always said, they can take away your car, they can take away your house, but they can never take away your education.
That's true.
So they are very interested in my past education and what all I've gotten. And some of them go up there and point, you know, what's this one, what's that one. So I tell them, and I tell them that phrase that my mom always said, because it's true. And I always tell them, you know, it's statistics. The more education you have, the more money you're going to make. You know, so get a high school diploma. You're going to make more than if you don't. Then go on to, if you need to, a vocational school, two-year college, anything that will get you that further education so that you're a little step ahead of some of the other ones that are competing for jobs.
Knowledge is power.
Right, absolutely. So that's what I try to teach them. I hope I leave that with them so that they know to persevere and get that high school diploma.
Good for you. Well, what a great influence she is. I'm sure with the rest of the campus as well, not just her students.
She actually is a mentor to some of our new teachers. She puts that hat on as well as a house leader for our high school, our 9th and 10th grade program. So she wears leadership hats as well. So it's a pleasure to have her and her expertise on our campus and her energy.
Absolutely. She just bubbles.
It does. I mean, it's not the years of experience necessarily, but the enthusiasm for it.
Gotcha.
Sometimes
well,
that works
again,
best.
it's that they don't know care what you know until they know that you
Absolutely.
care. And that is really,
Absolutely.
really true. Especially, you know, at Dale Cassins, it really is.
Right.
So, and you want to see them leave, but you don't.
Right.
And you miss them, I'm certain.
Right.
And,
Oh, yes.
and
yes.
they keep up with you, or you keep up with them.
Yes, and sometimes they come back and visit, and they always give you that hug. And of course, we're about to the time where we're going to transition some students. And so I'm always happy to see that because I want to see them fly, you know, and spread their wings and go back and be successful. That's what I want to see. And and I always tell them, you know, you've made a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes, but let's hopefully we learn from them and go on.
Close
and,
that chapter.
Right, that's right, and become successsul
Right. Now, did you always want to be a teacher?
I did. I always wanted to work with children. I always did. And from the very beginning, I got my psychology major first, and I realized that was not the place I wanted to go into. I wanted to go into education because I had worked with children during the summertime in camps. And so I realized that that's where I need to be, you know.
But your knowledge of psychology
has helped me out tremendously.
I was going to say.
Yes, it has.
Especially in a special education setting.
Throughout my whole career, it has helped me tremendously.
Well, sure, and just in life.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
One of our earlier guests had been in social work, and before she came in, but I mean, look, you use that every single day.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So when the students leave you, at whatever juncture it is, I feel like I'm hearing you say you want them to be confident of themselves as they go forward. Maybe they weren't confident when they made a mistake. You know, so.
Right. And also with their knowledge, you know, that they know more than what they really think they do, you know, because that's one thing. They come in, sometimes their self-confidence is not there.
Right.
And so you have to get them to become successful. And, you know, I do that in the class with several different things that I have them do during the day. And boy, when they get those good grades, man, they're just beaming. Man, you know, maybe I can do this.
Maybe I can do this.
Yeah, and they do.
Yeah.
They do. And they show that.
And parents as well. I'm certain that you really have those conversations.
Yes, communicate with some of the parents. And
I'm sure they're thrilled that you're around their child.
Right. Always had good success with talking with parents.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and if you always knew you wanted to be a teacher, even with the psychology piece, you know, that's just a double asset.
Right. It is. It has been.
Yeah. So do you see yourself continuing to do what you're doing? Or are you wanting to get back into administration? Or
no, I like the classroom right now. I do. I really like that contact with the students right now. And I do have some leadership roles like Ms. Harden was talking about earlier. And that's nice, you know, but it's I think that's enough, you know. So I enjoy where I'm at right now.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yes.
That's good. And I'm sure that you're glad she's there as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially with someone with as much experience and training. Now, did you just go directly to Dale Cat when you got here?
Yes, I did.
Okay. You're
yes.
lucky.
Yes, I interviewed that one 2 years ago in the summer, and
She knew she was home.
Yeah. So she called me and said, "Would you like to have the job?" I said, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
So I knew, and I love the programs. I do. I love that they're fitting the needs to the children. I love that.
The 8th grade program is fantastic.
Yes.
Very successful.
And has been very successful of transitioning students to get their 8th and 9th grade at the same time, correct?
Yeah, I want to tell you, you guys have been talking, and I have a few kids in my mind. I see children, and you have a 9th grader that last year was not successful, and his mom would attest to that. And now he is making all A's and 1B, and that 1B is driving him nuts, and this child was failing when we picked him up.
Wow.
And he stayed with us longer to get himself caught up and do everything. He'll be leaving us, hopefully, in this, January and June is when we release children. And he is so proud he's not touching the ground. He's getting his grades, and
that's
to see the difference in him when he was not passing anything until now. And that's what we do.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we celebrate, we call it a transition celebration. We invite the families to this meeting, and we invite the schools, and we just celebrate their successes.
That's great.
And
You do such a good job over there. I mean, you really do. You've made such a big difference under your leadership. With the different, like you said, with the programs that meet the needs of the students where they are, rather than they're having to adjust. Well, it's been a real pleasure to get to know you. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure visiting with you, too.
Thank you. And thanks always to you, Ms. Sarden.
Appreciate it.
And we're going to be right back with another teacher, so please stay tuned.
The sooner you quit smoking, the sooner you'll start reducing your risk.
And welcome back. And now we have from Dan McCarty School, Kevin Garbers, who teaches science and technology, and he's going to explain how he melds the two of them together, and also his principal, Mimi Hoffman. Thanks to both of you for being here and taking the time out of your day. So now, how many years have you been teaching?
I've been teaching since 1987, so that would be, about 25 years now?
Something like that,
and 23 of those in St. Lucie County.
Okay, and where were the other two?
The other two were in Red Bud, Illinois.
Oh, wow. No
just
kidding.
outside of St. Louis.
Okay, and so did you go up there or come down here? Or?
I went up, I graduated from Concordia, Seward, Nebraska, and my first placement was by the church. I was placed there at a private school, Lutheran school, and taught 2 years there, and then wanted to come back south where it was a little bit warmer, and had a lot of friends down here. So I came down here to teach and went to public school and started at Fort Pierce Elementary. They retired me in over there.
Oh, which is now St. Lucie Elementary?
No, now it's
Magnet School of the Arts.
Magnet School of the Arts now.
Gotcha.
So, yes, I was in the nicely air-filtered room with the windows that didn't close very well, but had a lot of great kids over there.
Yeah. Well, you've got some history in St. Lucie County then.
It's been a very interesting time.
Yeah, I bet it
Very
has
good
been.
time.
So now tell me about your classroom, and I know that you're kind of growing with technology, or I should say expanding with technology.
Well, in the past few years, I was teaching 8th grade science and enjoyed science very much, and I also been working with technology and stuff in the school. And so this year, our technology teacher was retiring, and so I was asked if I'd like to go teach in the technology room, but also bring some of my science experience, so we combine science with the technology.
Interesting.
And that allows our kids to grow in their science skills, as well as how to apply them with technology and to use them. Such as many of the things that we look at are like graphing skills and showing things in charts and such. And so we can do an experiment in the classroom and then take that experiment and make pie charts, graph charts, and we can look at how to drop and click and everything else onto the computer from the computer.
So is this more of a science curriculum, or is it?
It is a combination of both.
Okay.
It really combines both, because we're looking at the ITSE standards for technology. And if you look at most of the ITSE standards now for technology, it implies using the computer and using technology and incorporating that into their regular classroom. If we look at our Common Core standards now, our Common Core standards have at least 2 major areas that are technology based. And even though our kids know how to use a phone and send text messages, having them
Boy, do
sit-
they ever.
Yeah, they know how to do that very well.
Very well. Self-taught, too.
Yes. The problem is they don't know how to take that next step and to take the material that they've been working on in the classroom and putting that into written form, text form, show graphs and charts. One of the experiments we did was a common rolling of the dice.
Oh.
And we rolled 2 dice, and we talked about why the number 7 comes up most often. And in the past, many times I would do graphs where they would write it out and they would do the math and write it out, and yeah, that's why 7 comes up. But when I was able to take that same experiment and have them make a chart and a graph on the computer, a bar graph, then they could see the combinations and why it comes out. So they could visually see it as well.
I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I can probably figure out why it comes up, because there's combinations more often will come up with 7.
Correct. And it's always fun when you do that experiment with them, because I always start with the 1 dice. And then when I do the 2 dice, the first thing I have them make is, of course, a chart.
Right.
And your chart is numbered something through 12, because you get up to 12. Most kids start with 1. And I keep asking them, how do you get 1 when you got 2 dice?
Right.
And so you're putting the thinking skills in as well as the
well,
other
you got
skills.
1 and 6, 2 and 5, 3 and 4, that kind of thing. So
when you have right, so you have to teach them all those skills. But it's fun.
But seeing it with technology, because they're technology natives and we're immigrants, but that they're natives, it probably somehow clicks better in their brain or something. Utilizing technology like that, visually seeing it as well.
Yes, and visually seeing, but also they're putting that information into the computer, so they're actually inputting it. And if you remember right back when we were first teaching, if you write it several times, it gets into your head more. Well, by putting it into the computer more times, seeing the charts more times, it gets more.
Touching that data more than once.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Remember how many times I had to touch it
Exactly.
to remember it.
Well, your energy level is just so way up there. Is that what his classroom is like as well?
All the time, definitely. Yes, very engaging for the students.
And so, and is it 8th grade, I want to say, or is it?
In the past, I taught 8th grade, but now Dan McCarty is a 3 through 8 school, so I do all grades.
Oh, you do?
3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Right.
And with the Common Core standards, the Common Core standards also state that 5th graders are supposed to be able to type a full-page report by the time they leave 5th grade.
Wow.
Even though our kids know how to text, they don't know how to type
That's
properly.
different.
Remember how when we learned to type, there was a lot of skill involved, and our kids nowadays don't know that, but the Common Core standards say they're supposed to be able to type properly. And so...
Well, I mean, it's different on a computer than it is on your phone.
Right. I mean, you can't just use your thumb on a keyboard anymore. You have to be able to use all the fingers. So I'm incorporating that, as well as the websites that the St. Lucie County School District uses. It's amazing how many students don't realize all of the technology the district has available on its own website. Lawyer's Encyclopedia, World Book Encyclopedia. I mean, just the basics that we have available for our students to use countywide, they're going like, oh, I didn't know that. We're also doing DBQ,
document-based.
Document-based. I remember, my son's in the military, so I hear all the alphabet. Document-based questions. And so we're using the Library of Congress. And I took my kids onto the Library of Congress the past week and just have them explore and see all that's available. Our kids, even though we say they're technology savvy, they don't know what's out there.
Yeah.
Beyond Facebook, most of our students don't know what's out there. And
Well,
so,
it's not all good either.
no, it's not all good. And of course, that becomes part of the education as well, is your ethics and your what are you supposed to be looking for.
Right.
And nice that the county has a lot of good websites available that I don't have to be worried when I'm doing this in the classroom. Because, well, the one nice thing is our computer lab, of course, is set up so I can observe it all.
Yeah.
But I can walk around and know that if it's a specific site, I know it's safe for our kids to be using.
Exactly. So, Ms. Hoffman, tell us a little bit about what other roles maybe does Mr. Garbers play
Oh my
at Dan
gosh.
McCarty?
We need a lot more time.
Oh, would we?
Most definitely. He's our team leader for the elective teachers this year.
Okay.
He's been a team leader in the past for 8th grade and is doing a great job of helping them to be able to plan together and really work with our core teachers too on the things going on in their classrooms.
Right.
He is just the one everybody goes to for anything with technology. In fact, when I first started at Dan McCarty, he was one of the first people I met during the summer because he was there almost every day, hooking up the new computers, making sure everything was ready for school to get started, and helped me a lot in just learning a little bit more about Dan McCarty before all the rest of the staff and the students arrived. So anytime there's any glitch in a computer, he's the first one they go to. Just questions about getting set up. You know, he takes care of all the technology for all the teachers during the summertime, you know, storing things and then checking it back out to them. Computer programs, and then he runs our morning announcements morning show and has a great time, I think, doing that. We have a lot of fun, as you can see, very energetic, as you talked about.
Right.
And he has a great group of kids that he has really running it. He's just there to kind of oversee and make sure everybody's in the right place. But the kids, you know, he teaches them how to operate the equipment, how to make the PowerPoint slides, and, you know, manage all of that, and just does a fantastic job. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And everything he does, and just very supportive of any other initiative in the school, any other program going on, always, you know, out to support the children, and just a great person to have on your staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you must be also a leader in, or at least a trendsetter, talking about the Common Core standards, because that's just new this year. I mean, it's just been introduced, but it sounds like you've already grasped hold of them and indoctrinated at least a good part of it into your curriculum, or at least in your thinking, your
right, and
theology.
And a lot of that is because the course I'm teaching now allows me to look out there at these other ones, and because basically the applied science technology does not have a lot of direction as far as, you know, written instruction curriculum, because I'm picking up bits here and bits over here to make that program work for our kids, because every school is individual.
Right.
And so our goal was to make this work for our students and pick up what they need. And the Common Core are an excellent example of what the kids across the world need, and let's fit that into for our kids.
Right.
And so, yes, it is important. And I grasped hold of it because I saw immediately 2 out of the 5 points were technology-based.
Right.
How are you going to do Common Core if you don't learn the technology properly?
Right. Now, yours is more like a hybrid kind of course, I would think. In other words, that's not a typical in other middle schools, perhaps, or even K-8 schools, of blending the science and the technology.
Right, because we're blending, and we're trying to meet the needs of our students.
Right.
And he has such a strong science background, having taught that and worked in the science area for so long. We wanted to take advantage of that along with the technology, and not just for our 8th graders, even though, you know, of course, they're the ones that are challenged by the FCAT, but to help prepare our other students, as he mentioned, working with the elementary too, to get them ready, you know, for what's going to be ahead.
Right, exactly, exactly. Yeah, because, and it's a perfect marriage because of having your science background, but also your technology hobby, I guess, on the side.
Yes. And having taught 8th grade science for the many years, I knew what was coming up on that FCAT test for them, so we knew kind of where to aim. We knew where some of our shortcomings were, too. And blending it, as you said, we're here for our kids.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, with when we finally adopt all of the Common Core and FCAT goes away, of course there'll be end-of-course exams, and it'll be the same kind of testing procedures, so you'll be learning along with the kids, I guess, what the new standards are.
And you're going to have to look at each, the common curriculum as far as math, science. They'll be able to have Common Core testing. Your electives are going to have some of that flexibility to help meet those.
Right. And what you're teaching now is an elective.
Right. What I'm teaching is an elective.
But I'm just amazed that a 5th grader having to be able to type a whole page, 8.5 by 11, single-spaced, in 12-point type, rather than 72. That's amazing.
But, you look at technology today. What are they supposed to be able to do? And we have these high expectations, and we need to start meeting them.
I agree. I mean, when I first started learning typing in high school, it was on an old Underwood non-electric,
Try explaining to the students why shift means go to the capital letter. Nothing is moving anymore. Remember when we used to press shift, the whole keyboard would go up.
That's right. I'd forgotten about that.
It doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
But, and it's funny because some of the things that you try to teach them, you look at a keyboard and it's labeled this, Y.
Yeah.
But then I go with my mother, who's not very, used to a keyboard, trying to explain to her that enter key means return.
Right.
Because we used to call it return, but now it says enter on there. My mother can't find
figure that. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the keyboards are different now than they used to be. They were redesigned.
They're redesigned
from when I learned to type, and maybe you too. But still, things change. But you're right. If the children are supposed to have this standard met by 5th grade or 8th grade or whatever it is, we have to prepare with them and grasp it before they do.
And it's not just the typing. There's other media types of presentations and things too that they are
They need
going
to
to be
learn
able
the
to
PowerPoint. They need to learn to be able to drop and click and bring in graphs and there's so to look at a colored bar chart or a pie chart. If I'm looking at what percentage, how much of this is red, how much of this is supposed to be the blue, or how much is supposed to be green. Let's say M&Ms. How many red, blue, green do you have? If you have a circle chart, a pie chart, you can immediately look at it and say how much of that bag was. And then
about a third red, a third, it should be anyway.
You would think, but then when you do the experiments, a lot of times you find it's a lot different.
Isn't that interesting?
And when kids do it by hand, there's you make the circle, you can make it look pretty, but not very accurate.
Right.
If you do it on the computer and you put those numbers in and you teach the kids how to drag and click it, then it's exact, and then you can start seeing it. But the other thing too is like now when you bring science into it now, I can bring in, we've repeated the experiment. Why is it important to repeat the experiment? We got one kid who did it by himself. He's got this. Maybe 1/3, 1/3. Got another kid who's got all blues and greens in his maybe.
Right.
And then another kid who has reds and yellows.
Right.
So by repeating experiment, which is a very important part of our science curriculum, getting kids to understand why you need to repeat it. Most science fair experiments we get in nowadays, they may have planted 3 plants, or flown the airplane twice, or done the paper towels, 4 times.
Right.
Well, that's not a very good standard. You need to repeat. Well, why? And by being able to do this with
by showing
it and doing it with the different kids, 3rd grade through 8th grade, they start seeing and understanding. Now when they get to the 5th grade science FCAT, they've now seen why it's important and what's going on. And as they move to 8th grade, they even see more. They also see the charts and the graphs, not just in science, but how about the math charts and all those that are involved with FCAT and testing, or just what we go out, you and I see on a daily basis.
Right. Well, this time with you has just flown by. I couldn't keep up with you, but
I'm sorry.
No, but it's been a real pleasure to have you come over and spend some time, and always good to see you, Minnie.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to be right back with another teacher, so please stay tuned.
Honey, the credit fairy doesn't exist.
What?
It's make-believe. Nobody left anything under your pillow.
If there's no credit fairy, then we'll make our credit score go on.
We will. By doing things like paying our bills on time.
There's no magic to improving your credit, but there's help, and it's free. Go to creditfairy.org.
What?
And welcome back. And now we have with us from Okemuk K-8 School, Karen Ranelli, who was a 4th grade teacher there, and her principal, Carmen Peterson. Thanks to the both of you for being with us today.
Hi, thank you.
Okay. You teach 4th grade.
I teach 4th grade.
And as we all know, that is the year of writing in FCAT. And you were saying that's your passion is teaching writing. Why is that?
I love writing. Ever since I was young, I actually won a competition in poetry in 7th grade.
Wow!
And that inspired me to continue to write. And till this day, I love 4th grade. I teach my students that with passion and interest, they will succeed.
That's fantastic. So now, you were in 7th grade, you said, when you won the poetry contest?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, in Miami.
I was going to say, I didn't know if you were from around here, but so when you won that, did that spark interest in teaching others to write, or was it mostly because you just loved to express yourself?
I love to write, but it also inspired me to know that eventually what I wanted to do was become a teacher. Since a young age, I wanted to become a teacher. Therefore, when I started teaching, I actually started teaching with the little ones in 1st grade, and immediately my passion of writing came about, and I had my little ones begin to write and short stories and little things that they could talk to me about. And from there, then I transferred from Miami to here, which is where I began my career in Miami, and started teaching 1st grade, then moved into K1 and 2. And then from K1 and 2, I went into 4th grade at Village Green.
Okay. So how many years have you been teaching altogether?
It is now 15.
15 years. And 14 of those here in St. Lucie, or
3 years in Dade County, the rest were here.
Okay. Great. And now what other schools were you at besides
I was at Bayshore Elementary.
Okay.
And then I went to Village Green.
Okay.
And Okamic since it opened.
Yeah, which was what, 5 years ago? I want to say?
2005.
6. Yeah. So well, it opened the year that I began working here, so that's how I can always remember. It was the ribbon cutting we went to at your school that day.
Yeah.
So, well, that's great. Well, I'm certain, Ms. Peterson, that you were happy to have someone as passionate about what she's doing, and I'm sure successful as well.
And we're very excited to have Ms. Ranelli there. And you know, she said she's passionate about writing, and she is, but she truly is passionate about so many things. The children, their emotional well-being is so important to her, and just to watch her in the classroom create that learning environment for the students that is so safe and so secure, and they're willing to take risks because they want to. They want to learn, and they're excited to be in the classroom. So it's exciting for us to walk in and see that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in the process of writing to express oneself, not just writing a sentence or, you know, responding to a question or something like that, there must be some structural things that you teach first to kind of build on. So kind of where do you start when you, and I'm sure the 3rd grade teachers kind of start introducing those structures to students maybe toward the end of 3rd grade to prepare them for as much work as they're going to do, but kind of where do you start?
That's a great question. Really, you start with what it is that they like. You know, you look for topics that they will enjoy to write about, and you start with simple sentences, really, at the young age where you start with kindergartners, and it rolls all the way through. By the time they get to 4th grade, thankfully to the community that we are of teachers and educators that we come together, it's fascinating to see how much they learn from an early age of a simple sentence to when they come to us and now they're writing a paragraph. So you start with something that you know that they're going to enjoy writing about, whether it's, you know, their birthday, or it's a present, or it's someone special, or
a pet.
Exactly, or a pet. Something that they enjoy, because then you see the writer develop.
That makes a lot of sense. And you know, when they start, as a matter of fact, the teacher that was just here a little while ago said that by 5th grade, students in the new Common Core standards are expected to know how to type a whole page report. And I was just amazed. So you would be preparing those students in 4th grade to, obviously, they would ultimately master that skill.
Absolutely.
In 5th grade.
Absolutely, and it is one of the things that they favor the most is when they get to publish. So a lot of their publishing takes place on the actual computer, and that's one of the things they enjoy the most.
They self-publish right there at school, and they can print it out and bind it if they want to.
Absolutely.
That's exciting.
We make books, we make stories. I have things up on display in my classroom of things that they publish, from simple stories to complex and complete.
Yeah. Well, and from those simple structures, when they do respond in FCAT, they have to know how to not only read and comprehend a passage, but then be able to write well about it. And you know, that's it's a sophisticated skill in many brain functions, but you know, we take it so for granted that students are able to do that. So,
and the flow is important. Transitions are important, you know, and you can't have framework. You have to allow the students to be expressive. So it is really important to begin teaching them with something that they enjoy, because then you see what it is that they do know, and then you can facilitate that writing.
Right. So they're not struggling on the topic, I guess. Is, you know, so when you visit Ms. Ranelli's classroom, tell us, what is her classroom like? What do you see?
Well, I think I had mentioned a little bit earlier, it's very warm. I think that's the very first word that comes to mind, is it's such a warm, caring environment. And you know, we talk about caring, and you picture the teacher caring about the children, which is absolutely true. But she's created an environment where the students care about each other.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So they help each other, they work together, they are
so
partners, they collaborate, they cheer each other on. So those are the kinds of things that you see in, you had mentioned hands-on earlier, I think. Lots of hands-on activities, lots of exploration, lots of, another type of writing that the students do too is responding to literature, so that it's, you know, there's the one writing that Ms. Ranelli has been talking about is writing, you know, to express themselves, but they also have to be able to read other people's work,
Right.
Fiction or nonfiction, and be able to respond to that in a written format, and not just a simple question, but to be able to write a paragraph or 2 or 3 where they have synthesized that information.
Right, and paraphrase what they've what
So
they've
when you
learned.
walk in, those are the kinds of things that you see going on.
That's exciting. I mean, as we were discussing before we began, I'm a writer too. That's my passion, and that always pleases me. And when you said that you have their published works on the wall, on the board, or whatever, I imagine that just makes them so proud, and that and their friends would comment about it. So that's also adding to that safe environment.
It does, and when our community comes in or the parents come in, it's affirmation for them. They immediately, show off and go over to the wall and say, "This is what I've done. This is." What I did, look at my work. So it's really important for them to have that affirmation as well from the community and parents.
Absolutely.
And I think I would like to add that, she mentioned the parents and the community, and that is one thing that Ms. Ranelli has really focused on. She's a mom herself, and she's a very active community member. So she invites parents and she invites community members, and the students do Florida History Museums, for example, where they have researched using the computer, and then they have created projects on their own. A whole variety. They may create a technology presentation, they may create a video, just so many things. And then their parents come in and community members come in, and the students have to explain. They have to say why they did what they did. So again, a different type of response to literature from books, but also literature that's found on a computer, because that's what kids are using today.
Right.
So lots of parents, lots of community people coming in and out of the classroom and working with kids and celebrating kids.
And I think that's so important on both sides of that equation, so that the community understands what's going on in schools. It's not just that building over there. It personalizes, public education for many people who either it's been a long time since they've been in school or had children in school. And so, again, because schooling is so complicated anymore, and it's going to be even more so here with Common Core and all that, but it helps the public understand the challenges that you have. But it also, I think what's interesting and valuable is how the children then are connected outside of the school as well. That there's other adults that they don't even know that might be interested in what they're doing and appreciate what they're doing.
Absolutely, and that's also part of the integration process that I utilize within my curriculum, is making sure that they also have a connection to the real world, the real world expectations and what's going on outside of our building as well. Bringing them in also makes it real for the students.
Right. And because you're a K-8 school, which I think is just a great concept, the older students probably admire their work, and that makes them feel better as well. I don't know how many times they would interact with them, but if they're working on something, I know that the older students aren't typically in the same building, but they may be doing something special.
Right. Well, as a matter of fact, my 4th graders, their reading buddies, are 8th graders. So we do constantly, we just did a... We go up with our reading buddies, and one of the things that we just did was they showed us the differences between what a play is and what a integration of readers theater is. So my students gather from them, and they gather from us.
Absolutely.
So it's a two-way situation.
Yeah. and many times you have sibling situations. That's the other thing that's good with K-8 schools. And you get to follow those children if they stay at that school, through 8th grade. So I think do any of them come back to you and say, "Oh, Ms. Ranelli, well, you helped me so much"?
They do. As a matter of fact, today one of those students was kind of crying, and I approached her and I said, "What's going on?" She goes, "Well, can I talk to you? Because you're one of my Kids at Hope aces. They learned that with me in 4th grade, and I'm sure with other teachers as well.
Right.
But it's one of the things that I do focus on with Kids at Hope, being a Kids at Hope trainer. And, I went over and I spoke to her and tried to facilitate the situation, and she at least left with a smile on her face. So
well, and
they do come back.
Yeah, they do come back. And what Mrs. Peterson was saying, that seems to be the kind of heart that a person like you has, for kids and whatever. So, with it being 4th grade, and obviously we talked a lot about writing, but there's also the other core subjects that you have to cover. What are some of the skills and I wouldn't say talents, but the skills that you want to make sure that your students, in addition to the writing piece, that they move on to 5th grade with?
Well, definitely mathematics, science, your social studies, all the subjects that carry through. The nice thing, as I said before, was the fact that integration of writing carries through all my subject areas.
Well,
so
sure.
It facilitates the response to literature. It facilitates responding to literature in science and
Sure.
social studies. So it kind of carries
math
through.
problems.
Absolutely, and problem solving, which is really important. They're able to utilize their strategies of taking notes. They're able to strategize, okay, this is the main idea, or this is what's important out of this paragraph. Let me take the details out of this and, respond or make a paragraph, as we were saying. So it revolves around writing because we know that how important writing is. However, all the other subject areas integrate within, so it makes it a common component for the students to be able to see writing through all subject areas versus just in isolation. We're not just studying for a test, or we're not just working to the test.
Right, exactly. And with social media, how kids are using texting and all that now, I mean, it's so important to early on give them the skill that, that text writing doesn't.
Exactly. You don't write like you text.
No, you don't write like you text.
Absolutely, and they do. They're constantly on the computer. That's part of the rotations that I do within my reading. And my mathematics and my science and my social studies. And the students really enjoy the research process, which they're going to need even in high school. So we're not just preparing for one grade, but for all the grades throughout.
Well, because it is the building process, like you said. Now, do you have student-led conferences at Okemuk?
I do.
You do? Okay, I was going to say, you sounded like that.
I do. Yeah. I do have student-led conferences where my students actually have their own accountable notebook where they jot down all of their progress and they monitor that both in writing as well as charting it and different concepts of graphs that I also incorporate into that so that they can learn other subjects or strategies.
Well, certainly, but they're owning their own progress is what, and they're putting the data in themselves as well?
Yes, they are.
I think that's great. And they're only, what, 10?
They're 10. 9 and 10 years old.
Yeah, so they
can do it.
They can do it, but it's probably something that they've never done before or thought about doing before.
They enjoy it. I mean, they're constantly asking, can I have my data log? Can I have my data log? So it's really exciting to see that they own and they are accountable for their learning.
And their peers as well.
Absolutely.
Because I can just see how they would be. I mean, they're still young enough to be excited about doing something well and comparing or showing and sharing.
Competitive.
Yeah. And share. Well, I was going to go, but sharing with their friends. Look what I did.
Exactly.
And so they haven't become too private about that yet. So, well, I very much appreciate the time you spent with us here. It was really nice to get to know you and chat with you, and always good to see you, Ms. Peterson.
Thank you. Enjoyed it also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll be right back with another teacher, so please stay tuned.
You love Major League Soccer. You love your team. You love your friends and family. So before the first kick, pass your car keys to a designated driver. You might just find yourself at the championship game. Remember, responsibility has its rewards.
Team Coalition thanks the designated drivers who make sure you buckle up and get home safely.
And welcome back. And now we have with us from Forest Grove Middle School, Leslie Parker Earl, and her principal, Terry Davis. Thanks to both of you for being here today.
Pleasure to be here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis and I were chatting a little bit before you joined us about your classroom, and it sounds very, and you described it as eclectic, which I'm sure it is.
Yes.
Challenging as well, demanding of you emotionally, physically, in every way, I would think.
It does.
Talk a little bit about your classroom.
Well, it's a middle school classroom, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. Different disabilities. All of them have difficulty reading and with math and that sort of thing. So I try to teach as much of the curriculum like the other students have, but only accommodate it and modify it for my kids.
Mr. Davis was saying some of them are maybe on the verge of being nonverbal.
Yes, yes. Several of them are difficult to understand, and one child is definitely nonverbal, very difficult to figure out what she wants most of the time, but we work on
How
it.
do you communicate? Written, sign?
We primarily use regular language. You know, their families have been great families. They're working with their kids on regular conversation, which is really good. I would say that their receptive language is much higher than you would expect sometimes, you know, that they really do understand a lot of the things that you're talking about.
Right. Well, just like young children do that aren't babies, but
Absolutely.
they understand what you're saying, and babies, they understand what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. We do have words labeled in different places in the room, and we try to have a full language classroom, you know, one that taps into all the different modalities.
Because I would imagine, I mean, I'm certainly not a psychologist nor am I a teacher, but I would imagine when there's a weakness one area, another area may become stronger.
Absolutely.
In terms of communication?
I would think somewhat. Somewhat. They do have their limitations, but I just try to give them as much of what they'll need in their lifetime, kind of everyday kind of stuff that they'll need.
Right. Well, Mr. Davis, when you visit her classroom, tell us what you see as an administrator, as a former teacher, as someone who has a big heart for children. You know, what do you see?
I see kind of a one-room schoolhouse with all subjects being taught simultaneously at the same time to students in 3 different grade levels with a wide range of cognitive abilities. And it's just amazing to see because you can't, obviously, with that range of grades, let alone cognitive abilities, you can't just do the same thing.
Sure.
It has to be differentiated and divided up. So you'll see a couple of kids working with a teacher's aide on some very simple skills, and then there might be some kids doing some reading that's not too far off grade level. You'll see kids doing math with manipulative objects, and it all is going on at the same time. And it's a very supportive and caring environment. It's always fun to go in there.
Yeah, I'll bet. I'll bet. So tell us a little bit about you. Maybe did you always want to be a teacher, do you think?
Not as a young person. When I was young, I thought I would be the next Barbra Streisand, you know, because I love to sing and act.
Well, you've got an accompanist right here.
That's true. That's true. But I think as a teacher, you kind of sing and act and dance and do all those kind of things every day.
Yeah.
But then, as in my young 20s, you know, when I was kind of deciding on what to be when I grew up, I wanted to teach, and I always felt that I wanted to teach children who really, perhaps a lot of teachers don't want to teach, you know, because it is so differentiated in the classroom.
Well, and not only, you have like a triple whammy because you've got 3 different grade levels.
Yes.
And you've got varying exceptionalities and varying levels there. So it must be quite a juggling act.
It is, and I'm so thankful to the 2 assistants that I have in the classroom. They are awesome, and they, you know, they're able to do as much or more than I do even. They're great. Mrs. Dawson and Mrs. Stewart, they're just great people, and they love our kids, and that's, I mean, if you have the heart to work with our kids, that's, you know, that's really the thing.
Do you have to, well, you would adapt the curriculum, I would guess,
Absolutely.
but you're still having to follow the Common Core standards, and no?
Not really.
No.
Yeah. I don't see how you could.
Right, but I try to, like, if they're studying in, say, 6th grade science, if they're doing a particular thing that the students might need in their lifetime, you know, that's, I mean, they're somewhat limited, obviously. But like planets, if they're doing planets, you know, I mean, that's something that, you know, they know about, they've learned about a little, and I do like a lot of movement, you know, like make one of the students the sun, and then we've tried to do, so to get them to have, you know, an idea and have that kinesthetic stuff as well as
Do you get those
lecture.
kind of, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
That's
but do you get some of those really innovative ideas from other teachers, or you come up with them yourself?
Well, I think some of it myself, but I've, you know, been a student my whole life. I try to go to as many different types of workshops and things. We use Kagan a lot in our classroom,
I can see
movement
that.
and everything. the kids like it. It's something that they're able to be successful at. So, you know, that's the kind of thing that I really like to do with my students.
You're really focusing on real life skills.
Absolutely.
You know, your basic skills so that they can be productive members of society. They can take care of themselves and be able to, you know, perhaps work. Like you were describing, they probably won't have a typical diploma, but they will have completed their education.
Right, and hopefully we've gotten to the point where we discuss careers. You know, if they a couple of kids, of course, have said they wanted to be doctors or things like that. But we've talked about, well, if you like the medical field, these are other things that you could possibly do in the medical field. You know, I don't try to dash anybody's dreams. You know, I really try to encourage them to follow what they want to do.
It must be very encouraging, I guess, to you as an administrator to have someone like her on your campus, because
it's a real family atmosphere in there, and there's actually a family dynamic that you can sense after you're there for just a very short period of time, and it's always a pleasure to be in there.
Yeah, I can see where it would be an accomplishment every day. You know,
yes,
with your students.
you know, I really do pretty much feel really good at the end of most days. Tired,
yes,
but
well, that's
pretty
what I mean
good.
by physically challenging, emotionally.
Yes, because you're doing so many different things in different ages.
And
like
then
you say.
every year, when the 8th graders get ready to move on to 9th grade, Mrs. Parker Earl hosts a little graduation ceremony for them, and that was very much a lot of fun to be involved with. Just a little bit last year, and the kids get all dressed up, and it's really exciting to see them moving forward.
I think I saw a picture of that or something.
Probably.
Maybe somebody sent something for the newsletter, I believe, for that.
Yeah, one year we had Sheriff Mascara came by because one of my students he really had a desire to want to be in the sheriff's department. So it was a dream of his, and I was very happy to be able to help him.
Oh, I bet he was excited because and Sheriff Mascara does a great job of things like that.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
he's an imposing looking figure, you know, to a middle school student, be like, oh my gosh, it's the sheriff of the whole county.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Now, do they are there electives that they can take as well, or is there not time? I wasn't sure.
No, they do take electives. They're part of with all the other students too, which is great. About half of my class right now is in PE and doing what the other kids are doing.
That's great.
I have a couple of kids that are in the business class and a couple of kids in the home ec class learning, and that's very and that's very helpful for them too. You know, because that is something that they'll definitely need.
Absolutely,
as
and that's
adults.
something they can focus on in high school as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you know we have such fabulous culinary arts programs in our high schools.
Absolutely,
that and it is a lifelong skill. You know, so how many students are in your class?
13.
Okay, you were right on.
Yes.
And now, when they go to resources like PE and whatever, do you have to go with them? Do the aides go with them?
My assistants do go with them.
That are more physically challenged.
Well, more for the mental part, actually, because they physically, most of my kids are fine this year, but just to get them to understand the directions from the other teachers and be able to, you know, modify it a little bit and work and make sure that they're doing some of the same things.
I think that's great. I mean, and it's, you know, we're so fortunate to have someone like you because, like you said, it was in years ago. I mean, I don't know what would have happened, but there would be children that might not fit into a typical classroom.
Oh, absolutely.
And then they'd drop out or something.
Yes.
And kind of get lost.
I mean, when I started, you know, they were always, well, I started up north. So they were always in the basement classrooms and all that kind of stuff. And I'm so glad that that's no longer the truth, of course. But, you know, from when I started teaching a million years ago, you know, the whole system and the identification of students and working with students like mine have changed.
And you've always taught this kind of a classroom?
I've taught severely physically handicapped kids, autistic kids, pretty much the range. I worked with mentally ill kindergartners, so all different ranges.
I think we just identify those kind of challenges more readily today.
Yes.
than in years past. So
absolutely.
So what if there's one thing you want to make sure that the children in your classroom take away when they leave you? Not necessarily a skill. It could just be self-confidence.
The ability to feel that they can try to do anything, that they feel confident enough. I'd like them to be confident young people, just like any other student.
Right.
You know,
Well,
they
Mr.
have
Davis-
the same needs, the same fears as any other teenage kid. You know.
Right.
So.
Well, but
I think
Mr. Davis described your classroom as a safe place.
Yes.
So they have learned that they can take chances.
Yes.
They can get
absolutely.
something wrong, and it's okay.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely.
they'll just try again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but here again, teaching is a, it's a passion that you have to have it, because it's not
Absolutely.
easy. But someone in your situation has to have it in spades,
Well, thank
and
you.
patience, and all those kind of
Most days.
Yeah, most days. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Davis, about
No.
what she means to your school?
No, just a very positive influence, and the kids are very fortunate to have her.
Absolutely. Well, Ms. Parker Earls, thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank you.
spending time with us today,
Yes.
Earl. And also, Mr. Davis, always good to see you.
Always a
Former
pleasure.
neighbor.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So thank you, and we'll be right back in a minute for another interview. Please stay tuned.
In my 65 years of living, I have never seen anything as devastating as Hurricane Katrina. My mom was with us, and we'd evacuated to her sister's house. When we came back and saw the devastation, there were houses in the street. There was nothing left. There's no place to go, no place to cook food. We would spend days trying to find water. I've never dreamed that I would ever need the Red Cross.
The Red Cross is like, we're here to help you.
They're
It's like-
lifesavers. That's what they are.
Yeah.
They're lifesavers.
And welcome back. And now we have with us from Fort Pierce Central High School, Harry B. Williams, who's a math teacher, and his principal, Todd Smith. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us this evening.
Pleased to be here.
Thank you for having us. Thank you. So you're a math teacher, you're a
Yes, I
coach,
am.
you're a tutor. What else?
A husband and a father and a grandfather.
Well,
and
there you go.
All those intangibles that goes along with it.
So you've got lots of hats that you wear.
Yeah, I usually leave home at about 6:15 in the morning, and I get back home about 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Wow. And during all those hours, you're helping someone at some level with something.
Always.
Always.
Just even today, I tutor a 4th grader, and Juan was a little disappointed that I had to leave early. So he wasn't aware in advance that I was leaving 30 minutes early.
Right.
So kind of broke his heart today.
You'll make it up to him.
I told him that we'll make it up Wednesday.
Yeah, you'll make it up to him. So tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about your history, and I know a little bit of it since you were a Distinguished Minority Educator of the Year last year at Central High School. So your peers obviously think a lot of you. So
Thank you. I'm glad they do. I'm a long-term resident of Fort Pierce by way of 2 places. I was born in Philadelphia, raised in St. Augustine, Florida. Moved to Fort Pierce around 1965. Attended Lincoln Park Academy until it was phased out in 1970. Was in the first graduating class to attend and graduate from Fort Pierce Central High School. Went away to Florida A&M University, got a commission into the United States Marine Corps. Spent 4 years active duty, 2 years in the reserves in the Marine Corps. Resigned my commission because my wife didn't like it. She thought I was going to go away to war and not come back. So I returned to Fort Pierce in 1981, began working at Fort Pierce Central, and this is my 32nd year
Wow.
there. I've been there ever since.
fantastic. That's a little longevity there.
Yeah.
Well, I know some of that because we interviewed you here last year as
Right.
one of the finalists for the Distinguished Minority Educator of the Year.
Okay.
And so you're familiar with this process a
Kinda,
little bit. Now, when you came back after you left the Marine Corps, what drew you to teaching?
I was always taught to give back to the community in which you came from. So the most influential people in my life were educators other than my parents, and actually I went to school because I wanted to be a coach, and my original major was electronics engineering because that was my love. But because of my yearning to be a coach, I changed my major to physical education. And when I graduated, went to the Marine Corps and came out, I decided to live in Tampa, but my mom called and said they needed 35 teachers in St. Lucie County.
Wow.
So my wife and I were both teachers, and we came over here one Sunday afternoon. We interviewed at Fort Pierce Central Monday morning. We were both hired. And I made the transition from physical education to mathematics because actually Dr. Betsy Lamberson was a teacher at Central, and she was transitioning from the classroom to administrative. And I actually took her place at Fort Pierce Central, and I've been there ever since.
And Bonita is still teaching as well.
Bonita is actually the Dean of Students now, so that was always her lifelong ambition also. She started out as a math teacher also, and she transitioned into being a dean, and she's there now.
That's fantastic. So between you, you have 64 years about?
Well, she's actually a couple of years ahead of me because while we graduated from high school, ironically, same day, except I was in Fort Pierce and she was in Jacksonville, when I went into the Marine Corps, my profession was then being a Marine, and she was teaching at the same time, so she got 2 years on me. So she's in the drop now. She's 2 years ahead of me. So.
Well, but so between you, you have 66 years of teaching, you know, here in St. Lucie and also a couple in Duval County.
Well, she was in Pinellas County. She taught in Clearwater.
In Clearwater, okay. Oh, that's right. She just grew up in Jacksonville.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Well, you're a busy man, and I know Mr. Smith that he sort of wears a lot of hats on your campus.
Absolutely. But now I have to talk to his wife about mathematics also, because now we let that one out. We'll have to do a team teaching for a couple of those classes, for the Algebra 1 classes.
Now, what do you coach right now?
Actually, nothing anymore. I was the head football coach at Fort Pierce Central. I was the head wrestling coach, and I was an assistant track coach.
Oh, wow.
But when my son graduated in '03, I promised him if he got the opportunity to play college football that I would support him in whatever way I can. So my wife and I both, over a 4-year college career for him, we only missed 2 football games. We missed the 2 in 2004 when we got socked in by the hurricanes. So Palm Beach Airport was closed for 2 weeks, and we couldn't get out. Other than that, we were on the road.
I didn't realize the airport was closed that long, but you would know that, I guess, being there. But
yeah, because remember the month of October, we didn't go to school at all that entire month.
Yeah, I wasn't here then, but it was right. That was a long time, and I know we had those big yellow buses going and taking food to people who couldn't get out either.
Yeah, Francis hit us once, and then Jean hit us, so we got hit with 2 back-to-backs.
It was quite disruptive that year. I don't know if it was quite as bad other places, but I know right here in this particular area. Of course, Charlie was on the other side of the state, so everybody kind of got their own that year. So what kind of math are you teaching?
Right now, Algebra 1 and intensive math.
Okay, well, in Algebra 1, we now have the end-of-course exams.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is the 2nd year of that, I want to say?
Actually, the 3rd, but this is the 2nd year that it actually counts toward graduation. The 1st year was a trial year.
Right. And the difference, though, is taking those exams on a computer.
Right.
You know, it's going to be still some transition time in figuring out how to do that. So with the students that you're teaching Algebra 1 and intensive math right now, because of the use of technology, is that helping some students take tests better or easier, or what do you think about that, being a professional?
It depends on the student, you know, because even though they're basically raised in a microwave generation, some of them are high-tech, and some of them have very, very little knowledge of a computer. And, you know, it's something you have to do every day because there's a straight edge on a computer, there's a calculator on a computer, you know, so there's a lot of tools on a computer that if they don't actually use it every day, but because they're so technologically savvy, a lot of them can just pick it up real quick. But, you know, and it makes them lazy in class, because when we ask them to show your work and use scratch paper and that kind of thing, you know, their mentality is, well, we're going to take the test on a computer, so, you know, why do we need to show all the steps? You know, so it's a battle that we teach, that we fight every day as being math teachers, you know, just to try to convince them that you've got to make that transition. You're going to always need the paper pencil, even though the method of testing is going to be by computer.
Right, exactly. Are there any other courses that you'd like to teach, since we have your principal sitting here? And the kinds of math, I guess.
I'm certified to teach driver's ed, certified to teach Naval ROTC because I was in Naval Option and in Marine Corps. So, and actually my primary major is physical education. But you know, now with 3 years, knock on wood, before I can retire. So I'm happy where I am.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, I'm sure that you're happy that he's happy where he is.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we have to address also is his role as department chairperson for the mathematics department at Fort Pierce Central High School, and also a team leader. And a team leader, as he's in charge of, working with five teachers on his team. The most important thing about that, he's in charge of 150 freshmen as they come in. And one of the most important things that he has to do is break down the barriers that they present and the hard exteriors and get them to open up. That's one of the things that we really strive for at Central. And he does an outstanding job there because open the door to communication. And that's the most important thing, to get the kids to actually talk about their feelings and emotions and where their needs are being met and not being met, so they can express that. So that's coupled with mentoring students and beginning teachers. So that's one of another roles that he plays at Central.
Right, right. And now I didn't realize that was including these are students that are in your class, or is this another like a freshman academy kind of type thing?
Well, within the 9th grade academy, all of the students are in what we call a freshman seminar class.
Okay, so you teach
they
that
have
as
a
well?
specific. No, I don't teach that. We have a specific teacher that's designed to teach that. But as a part of the academy, that's our team goal, because within the pod, we have a freshman seminar teacher, a math teacher, an English teacher, a science teacher, and a social studies teacher, so that the kids can actually stay in one pod all day. The only time they leave is to go to lunch, or they go for an elective or something like that. So, but we have team meetings on a weekly, most of the time on a daily basis, so that we can discuss every kid, because there's some ramifications. If a kid is having trouble in math, it will help me to find out from the freshman seminar teacher, well, is anything going on with Jimmy at home or Susie at home? And sometimes you can find out that there's a problem in another area, which carries over to your subject area. So by having that relationship as a team, it really helps us to service the kids.
Right, and they're at the center of that. They're the hub of that wheel.
Right.
In other words,
everything is geared around the student.
I think that's such a great concept, having the freshman academy, and like you said, to break down those walls and barriers may have been put there by being unsuccessful in middle school. You just don't know until you get to know that child.
And it's compounded by the fact that they're faced with the EOC now, where a student may have straight A's for every marking period and not pass the EOC. They will not get credit for that course.
That's just incredible. The demands being made by the state, and with no funding to go along with how are you going to buy all these new computers?
Right.
That's a problem right there. So in your remaining couple of years, is there anything that you haven't done that you'd like to do in relative to school? I mean, would you like to coach again? Would you like to?
I consider it. Inactively, I'm really still coaching, because we talk. I talk to Josh and Charlie Frank and Henry a lot, and Pete Crespo and I are in constant contact about wrestling, and I'm really sort of an undercover assistant for my wife with track and field. So I work the press box for her doing big track meets, and if there's a need for transportation to help Pete Crespo with the wrestling team, I'll volunteer my time. And so because I've coached the sports, and you're stretched thin, because at a wrestling tournament you may have 4 of your kids wrestling at the same time. And if they only have 2 or 3 coaches, then it helps to have that other person there, even just as a safety factor, just to be there. So, So even though I'm retired from coaching, I'm not retired from coaching.
And I have a feeling that even when you retire from teaching, that are working at the school, I have a feeling they'll see you around as a volunteer in some way, shape, or form.
I hope to stay involved.
Yeah,
I've got too much purple and gold just to let it go away.
It's not every place you can wear something like that.
That's true.
Now, is your son still playing football?
No, my son's graduated now. He graduated in 2008. He's back here. He works for the ARC of Martin County. He's a job coordinator for special needs adults, and he enjoyed what he's doing.
You obviously have a history and a tradition of public service in your family, being teachers, and also he, working to help people.
He works in public service. My daughter's a doctor, so between the 4 of us, we're all Florida A&M University graduates. We've all been molded in the same way. You're taught to give back to the community in which you serve. I think my daughter would probably be here, except that her husband works for FedEx, and FedEx's hub is in Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, right.
So it keeps her and the grandkids 13 hours away.
Yeah.
But
Well, go
just to know
Rattlers,
that I
right?
can get in the car and get there in 13 hours.
Yeah,
I'm
that's not
pretty
bad.
fixed.
Well, I really appreciate your coming in this evening. It's been a pleasure to talk to you again.
Pleasure being here.
And thanks to
Thank
you
you.
too as well. And we're going to be right back with another interview with another teacher, so please stay tuned.
Lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer death in the United States. It's a national tragedy killing thousands each year, leaving behind devastated families. Cigarette smoking causes most cases of lung cancer. If you or a loved one smoke, get the help you need to quit now. The American Legacy Foundation and the National Association of Broadcasters want to help. Visit their website to learn more.
And welcome back. And now we have with us from Fort Pierce Magnet School of the Arts, Carrie Sane, who is a first grade teacher. She's a native of Okeechobee County, but she's been with St. Lucie Schools for a couple of years. And Dr. David Washington, her principal. So thanks to both of you for being here with us a little time today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, and congratulations by being selected as your peers after only being at the school for 2 years.
Thank you.
I heard Dr. Washington praise you as he came in that you have a knack. You have a knack with children, particularly young children, it seems like. Before we began taping, we had a little conversation about when you first went to college, what was your aspiration? So repeat that conversation, because I think Dr. Washington might be surprised. He may not know this.
Well, when I first started college, I went to the University of Central Florida, and I originally was a civil engineer major. I was a big math nerd in high school, and I loved design and just building things. And I went in my second year, I really realized the impact my teachers had on me. My calculus teacher was amazing, and she took the subject and taught us like we were kindergartners in a sense.
Oh.
And then that same semester I had a physics class where I just didn't feel like the teacher was making an impact on us. He wasn't teaching. And that
going through the motions.
Exactly, yes. And so that semester really turned me around to see how much of an impact it was. Of how much a teacher would have on somebody.
Right.
And so that put me into the education
Right. That
field.
became your calling, because then you could say, you know, I don't want another young person to have the same disappointment that I did. And isn't that an important story, Dr. Washington?
Yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, I knew that.
Okay.
We have tapped her to do some tutorial for some of our older kids. Ms. Sane is responsible during the regular day for first graders.
Right.
But in our after-school program, and she probably does not know why, picked her to do math for third and fourth graders. And that was because I heard that story about her working towards making a difference in children's lives, particularly with math.
Right.
So now she knows why we hired her in the after-school program
Yeah.
to teach math.
So you did know the secret. It's just she maybe hadn't put that with the reason she got into education in the first place.
That's
But
exactly right.
I just thought that was a real picture of the passion it takes to be a teacher and to do the things that you do every day, and then provide that extra help in the afternoon. So tell us a little bit about your classroom, and then I'm going to ask Dr. Washington the same question as to what he sees when you go in your classroom. What are first graders really like? They're not brand new to the school environment.
Right.
They've been in kindergarten, maybe even pre-K, so they know there's a little bit of structure. But what do you see in them when they first come in, and then when they exit in May or June, the difference that you're hoping that they attain?
Well, I have been a kindergarten teacher prior to this year, so I knew what they were going to be like coming into my classroom. I knew what I expected. It is a surprise just seeing the ability of the writing and the reading skills that they have compared to what they had last year. I think it's a huge jump. They are able to work independently a lot more than kindergartners. And especially like at center time, they're able to work independently and read directions and able to write more. That's been a huge surprise to me, because I didn't know that they could jump that quickly.
Right, and adapt to movement, I think, and I think that's what you were calling the self-direction, because they could go to one center. They're going to be at different paces, so one may finish before the next. They know to move on to the next center rather than wait around for someone to direct them.
Yes, they can take that, direction and say, okay, I'm done, now I can go to this one, and when I'm done with this, I can do that.
Do you think you'd like to stay in first grade? Forget that your principal's here.
Honestly, I think my heart is in kindergarten, but I do enjoy first grade.
Right. They're not that much different.
No.
It's just that the structure, and they're not so wide-eyed and know that. So the skill level, when they come in, you mentioned this, and I'm sure they're varied depending on how many years they've had and the kind of instruction they've had. And I think our pre-K and early childhood program is going to reap so much benefits as we go. You may have already seen a little bit of it, but when we get into like the 4th and 5th year, when these children are getting to 3rd grade, we'll see a big impact. But when they come in, they may be reading fluently for that level, and they may be writing well enough. But what are some of the skills that you, as their facilitator of education, that you want to make sure they leave your classroom to move on then to 2nd grade, which is a whole different world?
Well, I want them to have confidence, first of all. I want them to be confident whatever they're doing, whether it's reading, writing, math, just to have that confidence so that when they are taking on a word, if they're reading, they can sound it out, or they can remember the rules that we've learned with certain letters. With writing, we have really worked on using a lot of thinking maps to collect our thoughts so that we're able to, tell what we can write and use our words and use our description words. And the thinking maps have really helped build their confidence. I've seen a huge growth since the beginning of the year till now, just how much they can write.
Can you explain in a simplistic term that an adult would understand versus a child what a thinking map is? Because, parents that are listening, they may want to help support that kind of learning. It's almost like drawing a path to get to an end.
Right.
So that's why you use the term maps.
Well, thinking maps, for example, when we do our writing journals, we do a tree map. And it kind of looks like a tree in a sense. And we put whatever the topic is on the top. And then we pick 3 different things that we want to talk about. That way we're focusing on 3 different subjects.
Okay.
So that they don't just pick a whole variety of things to talk about.
Gotcha.
We also use a circle map where we put this topic in the middle, and then we just write everything we know about that topic around it. We use them also in reading to kind of collect our thoughts about the story, whether it's the author's purpose or details about the story. That way the students know what they're looking for when they're reading as well.
Well, I think that parents could use those kind of tools, because if they're helping their child read, or maybe they can kind of apply that structure. Well, let's talk about what you have read, what you think you're going to read, then you learn that projection and all that. And what I always like to ask young children, especially, how do you think the story's going to end? How do you imagine how it's going to end? And they always say, I like to read because I can make a movie in my head. So their imagination will just take them wherever, especially if they read a lot. Yeah. So what other things would you, when you have your parent-teaching conferences, especially with your experience both in kindergarten and 1st grade, what are some of the kind of tips that you get to give to parents to help support the child at home?
Well, I kind of find out a lot about the parents and who they are and what kind of home life that the child lives in, to kind of understand what they're going through. I like to give them all kinds of tips, like games and stuff like that, to make it fun, so where the child doesn't feel like they're working all day at school and then they come home and they're working at home as well.
Right.
So I know when I was teaching kindergarten, I would always tell them to do the alphabet game when they're driving, whether it's to the store or on vacation, and just to find letters as they're driving, as well as environmental print to find those things as well. And I tell
all the kids know what that M is, and stop signs and all that kind of thing. And I know when my daughter was little, Special K, because her name starts with K, so she would always, in the grocery store, there's my letter.
Right. Just finding spelling words, rhyming words, just making it fun.
And reading as much as possible, even just picture books and things like that. And I think one of the things that I found interesting from a teacher is that even the mechanics of turning the book from the right page to the left page, just rather than starting at the back and not, that may be more kindergarten, but still that's an important mechanic for them to understand.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, Dr. Washington, I know you visit Carrie's classroom many times during the year, and sometimes you may just go there for fun.
I do. Often I go there for fun.
Tell our audience what you see when you visit her classroom.
The boys and girls in Miss Sain's class are always on point. They know exactly what the lesson is, and they're little teachers. They are spitting images of their teacher.
That's interesting.
Many times when I go to the classroom, they want me to sit next to them, and they direct me to the right page, and they direct me to the word, and that's the dog is moving. And they exemplify the lesson that their teacher has already worked with them on. They are true students who really want to do well, not only for the teacher, but for their parents as well. The unique piece in Mrs. Sain's classroom is that there is a direct relationship between the students and the teacher. And in order for the parents to be successful, there has to be a relationship between teacher, student, and parents. And in Ms. Sain's classroom, you get that. She does not know this, but many of the parents said, we want our kid to be in her first grade classroom.
No pressure though, Ms. Sain.
No pressure, no pressure at all. I often make stops there because when I'm in busy during the day and I need to get away, I go to first grade with Ms. Sain's class because I'm assured that somebody there is going to teach me a new skill. She has some little girls there that are always on point. They can always explain to you what the learning goal is and where they are on the scale. And then she has some boys that are very jealous when I spend a whole lot of time with the girls and no time with them. I think that true education happens in her classroom every single day. For the first graders at Arts Magnet that left kindergarten and moved to first grade, I could see milestones from kindergarten to first grade. And she's absolutely right. The kids are writing. They're writing stories. They're giving you vocabulary words. Come with me. Let me show you the words on the word wall. They can explain. They give you definitions. And what we're doing with the kids is we're making them defend answers. And in first grade, they can defend answers in Ms. Sain's room. And you mentioned, what is the end of the story going to be?
Yeah.
Those kids will say to you, we can predict what the end of the story will be.
Right. Well, what it describes to me, and boy, what great praise from your principal that will come to visit your school, and he learns in your classroom. It sounds to me like and you said you wanted the children to be confident when they leave your classroom. Well, it sounds like you've provided the structure, but also the freedom at the same time. So they have the freedom to make choices, but they know where to find those choices and how to then direct their own learning. I guess that's what I was trying to say. They're owning their own learning, but then they get so excited when they can show you what their learning is. Is that because you've geographically set it up one way? Because the learning levels in your classroom, especially the first part of the year, could be very disparate. So they know kind of where to go and what to do and what lesson to do.
Yes.
And I think you said they're teachers. They like to help each other.
Yes, they do. And especially during center time, they have designated spots. We have a chart, and they have a center number.
Gotcha.
And
that's what I was looking for.
They go wherever their number is for that day.
Well, good. What do they like to read about or write about? I mean, again, it's going to be, he's smiling for some reason, probably their pets or planes or whatever. What do you find that they like what interests a 6-year-old?
Well, honestly, I have read this book called Pete the Cat, and there's a series of them, and they are just in love with that cat. We actually did a design a shoe for Pete the Cat contest.
Wow. Oh, cute.
Earlier this year for Scholastic Books. They are just obsessed with him. So anytime we have free time or free writing, it seems like Pete the Cat will always come up. And I have his stories on CD as well.
Okay.
So that is one thing that they love. And they love to kind of add on to the story. Like they like to design his shoes and write about his shoes and things like that.
Does he personify character traits that they see? Oh, well, my friend Joey is like that, or is he? I mean, is he kind of like a person? He gets in trouble like a little kid does.
Yes, he's very creative and he's very laid back, and he gets into mischief a lot. So they like that.
Yeah. Does he climb up a tree and get stuck, and the firemen have to come get him, or something like that?
Well, one of the stories is he has shoes, and he walks in strawberries, and they turn red, and he walks in blueberries, they turn blue.
Right.
So they like that.
Yeah. They because they get in trouble too sometimes when they walk in and stuff. Well, I can understand why Dr. Washington likes to visit your classroom, and I can also see, because you're very calm, you're quiet. I think that they would be very attracted to your classroom because that gives them that confidence. And you've structured it to where it seems like, from what I'm hearing you say, they're also not afraid to try something new. And if they make a mistake, It's okay. They try again. I bet Pete the cat does that.
Oh, yes.
Well, thank you for the time. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely enjoyed chatting with you. And Dr. Washington, always good to have you here.
Thank you again for having us.
You're welcome. And we're going to be right back with another teacher, so please stay tuned.
I'm starving. What's for breakfast?
Guten Tag!
Johannes, Franz!
I bring you arts-enriched Raisinblums, fortified with increased test scores and creative problem-solving skills.
It's good!
And good for you. Bobby? Susie? Don't worry, that's just the power of the arts!
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
And welcome back. And now we have with us from Westwood High School, Robert Beasley, who is an English teacher. And I don't have to call it English or language arts, or does it really matter? Well, you can explain that to us.
But it's pretty much the same thing.
Okay. And Assistant Principal Jim Sloan, thank you to both of you for taking time to be here with us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely, absolutely. We need to say that Mrs. Hamilton, your principal, is ill today, but you've stepped in to fill that role, so we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Now, I just learned something interesting about you, that you actually attended Westwood High School.
Yes, I am a graduate of Westwood.
You're a proud graduate of the Panther Nation.
Very proud graduate of Westwood, actually. My father was an employee there years ago.
Wow.
Before he moved on to Port St. Lucie High. And I actually started at Port St. Lucie High with him when I first started teaching. And then I moved to Westwood at the beginning of last school year.
Okay.
Very great place to be, very nice.
Absolutely. I have a lot of good friends and relatives there. It works very well. Tell us a little bit about your history in terms of, you obviously grew up in St. Lucie County.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
We kind of landed here.
Okay.
We are a military family. Dad spent 20 years in the service. When he retired, we had moved to mountains of North Carolina. Back and forth to Florida a couple times, out to Texas, and we wound up in St. Lucie County mid-'80s, early to mid-'80s, and that's when he started at Westwood. And he worked from Westwood, or at Westwood, from, I want to say 84 to 92, 93.
When Port St. Lucie opened?
Well, Port St. Lucie actually opened, I think, in 88.
Okay.
So he started, he brought the ROTC program back to where it is.
Oh, did not know that.
Up to a nice place when he was at Westwood. Then he started a new program at Port St. Lucie High School. And he retired from Port St. Lucie High.
Great.
So that was about 10 years ago when he left St. Lucie County. But I was initially, when I graduated from college, I was supposed to go to Westwood. There were some things that happened, and I wound up at Port St. Lucie High instead. Very great place to be there as well. But ever since I got to Westwood, actually, the administration and the faculty and the kids are fantastic. And I know that people at Port St. Lucie High won't necessarily appreciate this comment, but I enjoy the kids at Westwood much more than I had enjoyed the kids at Port St. Lucie High School.
Well, you have an affinity, too, for Westwood.
And it's not me actually being negative, because I love my kids from PSL, and I am in contact with most of them and some of their families. And it's not meant to be a negative comment at all.
Right.
But,
not taken that way.
I really like my kids at Westwood.
You know, I think part of it might be, and this is just my opinion, and my observation perhaps, but the culture that's been established in the last couple of years, thanks to Mr. Sloan and the other APs and Ms. Hamilton, is, I think, starting to really show in the students and their attitude and what they're trying to accomplish and their goal setting. And I think maybe that's what you're feeling.
And from the faculty as well.
And faculty as well, right?
Yeah, because
you got to have buy-in.
Yeah, there's total buy-in from the faculty. I'm not going to say total, but it's getting to the point where, as if I was an administrator, I would be very happy with what my staff, faculty, support staff, and everyone was doing at Westwood High School. People care, and the kids can tell. When you have kids seek you out, and kids who you've never taught seek you out, it says a lot for either word of mouth and or politeness and courteousness. I come in contact regularly with students who I've never had in my classroom, who are just as polite, as forward as they can be, and I think they know that the adults are there to help them, and they're starting to do their part, which is a very nice place for a school to be.
Right, and that's why I said I think that the culture that they've ever since the administration has been there, which is 4 years, 5 years?
We're going on
fourth year.
Fourth year?
Next year will be
Okay.
the fourth year.
Yeah, we're.
And this is your second year there, so it's starting to catch on.
can see the culture
Yeah, you can
change.
see the culture change. Right. So now, do you teach all grades or just?
I don't have any freshmen this year. I do have sophomores this year. Last year, well, I have sophomores and seniors. Last year, I had juniors and seniors.
Okay.
But believe it or not, I actually, I have a little bit of everything. But it's nice. The kids are mature. Even the younger ones that I have are sometimes more mature than the older ones that I have. But like I said, they're very polite. They're understanding, and they're willing to give it a shot. If they get the feeling that you respect them and you trust them, they're willing to take that step outside their comfort zone to get to a place where either they would like to be or you would like them to be. And to see them change their way of thinking, which I saw a lot of last year. And I'm continuing to see growth in some of the kids. I have some kids from last year this year. You see them making the adjustments. So when the expectations and or the level of rigor have been pulled up, they are starting to rise to the occasion.
Respond.
Which is a very positive aspect. It's very positive.
And I think it's that old saying that, especially older kids, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
And you've exhibited that to them, and I know that the administration does that as well. So that's what's helping that response come as well.
Well, absolutely. Them seeing that you have high expectations and then you holding them to those expectations is important.
High school English. Now, how much? I was originally an English major when I went to college because I wanted to be an English teacher and realized I didn't have the patience. So I thought, I'm going into journalism. What is a high school English class now? I mean, I know that students with social media and that immediate gratification, you have to really kind of adjust how you teach to keep their interest.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But
tell me I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong.
well, it's not that I'm going to tell you that you're wrong. There is that instant gratification type of society going on. But at the same time, you can either incorporate that into or try to change your approach so that the kids realize. But when it boils down to literature, especially with juniors and seniors, you're still doing the same thing that people have always done in English class. You're always trying to get them to think outside of the box that they've been stuck in. And a lot of times, and actually I had this happen to me at Westwood, they come in and they're in a very limited, they have a limited field of view. So they don't always want to look beyond what's there. So I have, and my kids they'll call you out on it if you're not familiar with me. They'll look at the other kid and like, oh no, you can't do that. The expectation is that you explain this, and then you go on and you find proof and further explain.
You defend your answer.
Yeah, it's a total defend and explain type environment. They're not just answering with dates and names and or events anymore, where people have customarily, like we would be accustomed to, a multiple choice test. And at first they have a very difficult time with it. Once
it's different.
Yeah, and then the other kids will come in and they'll say very point blank, oh, you're not allowed to do that. You're going to have to do it this way, or he will not take that. And they'll say, well, I don't understand.
You've got your army there with you.
Well, it's not even that. It's like they understand the expectation.
Right, exactly.
So it actually helped me this year in the fact that I had kids who were in my junior sections last year, where the other kids, and they would simply look at them and, oh, you don't understand him. and it's not that it's a barrier in between it, it's just the expectation is different. And once they understand your expectation, then the quality of their work increases. And I'll use the word rigor a lot, and I know my administration uses that term, and a lot of administrators throw that term rigor around, and everybody's looking, what are you talking about? But challenging them to step up and step beyond what the normal expectation is something that I feel that educators necessarily need to do. I started with my 11th grade regular and my 11th grade honors last year, pushing them towards post-secondary response types. So while they might not all have the same skill set, the expectation was there that they push towards that. So they were able to explain, able to provide proof, and able to stand behind their opinion. I have one young lady in my 5th hour this year, and the entire time we were reading Beowulf, there's a section of Beowulf in which he's fighting sea serpents, and she wanted to prove that he was a fish.
Ah.
I said, well, he's not a fish. And she's like, well, if I prove that he's a fish, will you accept it? I said, if you can find the proof, and she never found the proof, but she mocks me with it. But it's really comical because she knows the expectation is there that if she finds the proof and she can back it up, then she can win her argument. And they like that. They like being challenged, and they like being able to explain. And they have said on more than one occasion that it's very difficult, but at the same time, it is something that prepares them for the future.
Well, you know, it's funny with classics like Beowulf because, I mean, we read Beowulf when I was in high school, and probably our parents too. But one of the things that really, you can compare genres now, even like Harry Potter or something like that, and compare that to that genre as long ago as it was written. And the other thing is there's always crossword puzzle words about Beowulf, so that always helps in the future, too.
But it's something we did. We took a different direction with a couple of things this year. And one thing that you might be familiar with Joseph Campbell. If you're not, he had this thing called The Hero's Journey. And I introduced one of my groups to The Hero's Journey. And as they're reading whatever story they're reading, they're actually applying it without knowing. So once they learn the initial concept, they've been able to subconsciously apply that concept to other things. So it's interesting to see how they matured in that fashion, and how they matured towards the responsive actions, or the response aspects of it. The kids they're I hate to say the word cute, but it's impressive, I guess is a better word than cute, but it's impressive when you see them grow.
Well, and applying, not learning in a silo, what they're learning in English or language arts, applying
we'll
in
be
other
able
places.
to grow past that. With the expectation, they're actually, instead of being stuck in an ABC world of multiple choice, they're able to build their fort and stand on it.
Exactly.
Right.
So as an administrator, you know, and hearing Robert describe his philosophy and how his classroom is established, how does that kind of fit in with what I know, since you've been there since the beginning of this new administration? How does that fit in kind of with your all philosophy and what you're trying to impress upon not only the faculty but the students as well?
Well, I think it goes back to what you said about the students need to know you care. And we just had a situation the first 9 weeks. Student didn't do a paper right, turned it in, wasn't happy with it. And she was scared to go back to class because she knew how disappointed he was in her. And she even redid the paper knowing she wasn't getting credit, just to show that she could do it, and she wanted to, you know, make him know that she wasn't trying to deceive him. So anytime you go in his class, you can tell he has that connection with the students. Like he said, they'll come to him willy-nilly. He worked with, senior pinning, getting clothes for him, for the kids who didn't have clothes to wear. So just making those connections, I think that's the biggest thing you notice right away going in.
Right. And going back to the genres with, there are so many sources of information, and I don't know if you have the students like read a book and do your typical book report, or if they can use online resources, or kind of how you adjust. They will anyway.
That's
you
what
might as
got
well.
that young lady in the trouble that we were just speaking about. But it's, especially with texts. For the first time in Westwood's history, I paired with Mrs. Hamilton and some of the other English department teachers, and we developed a summer reading list for grades 9 through 12.
There's your expectation.
Yeah, the expectation was changed. It was the first. It's part of their changed movement, or whatever, however you want to relate it. But my kids came in. The honors kids came in the fall. The expectation was there, and as they navigated that first 9 weeks period, they learned of how I wanted things done. So what the young lady that he was referring to, she rolled the dice, and unfortunately, she didn't get what she wanted. But at the same time, she came back. Yeah, she came back swinging.
Yeah.
And the fact that she's like, I'm not down.
Yeah.
and that was absolutely outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
But she was very scared to come back to me and then to ask, so she had him hound me, and then between the three of us, she turned in a fantastic paper on the way back. And then when she had her second writing assignment, the same thing. But with the summer reading program, I actually had built a component in specifically for that Honors 4 group that would take them through the second 9 weeks. So in their in-class reading, they had an out-of-class component, and their Thanksgiving project was roughly, for most of them, a 7 to 10 page paper comparing 4 different sources.
Wow.
So
Very cool.
And the way that they navigated that is they showed that they were able to, across various topics or various genres, prove a point.
Various references or sources.
And compare and contrast between them and bring their explanation forward. And the beautiful thing about it was that some of them were completely wrong.
But that's okay.
But they substantiated their claims, which was what I wanted.
Right.
But we started with the expectation they received it at the end of May.
Right. And I think what I'm hearing you say also is that you've created not only that you care about them, but that young lady may have been afraid the first time. Next time she won't be afraid to come back.
She's not.
So
She
it's a
wasn't
safe
afraid the second
environment.
time. Yeah.
Safe environment.
But and they'll let you know.
Yeah.
And he's exactly right in the fact that initially they did not want to come back, but now they're to the point. And unfortunately, I had some students, because of class size reduction, that had to leave my group and go to a different group, and those kids still come and see me.
Well,
and
that says a lot.
They had me for 7-8 weeks, and they'll still come back and visit, and they'll ask questions. I have kids who have left me and gone on to dual enrollment, and they come back and they ask the same questions that my kids ask, and they're curious and won't help and whatnot. But it's what makes me extremely comfortable at Westwood and comfortable in the shoes as an educator there is that you can see the culture change and you can see the shift.
Right.
And,
it's a sea change, and you're right in the middle of it.
Yeah, so it's, I don't know what it's like to be, because Mr. Sloan and everybody have been there for, a year or two longer than I have, but just in the last year and a half, it's...
Well, you've got new groups of kids coming in, too.
You've had...
And new staff.
But I've only been exposed to 2 years worth of the kids, more or less.
Right.
So, but to see the change in the kids that have been there for 4 years is interesting.
Right.
Because those are the kids who you would normally... We'll say, well, as soon as they're gone,
right,
they'll be
exactly.
better.
We got new.
But while these kids are here, you're seeing them improve. The seniors at Westwood are fantastic kids, and they're starting to change. But that change happened as a result of the initial administrative change, and the faculty change, and the buy-in, and it's a positive culture.
Well, it sounds to me like you fit in very well, and appreciate the time you've gotten here. Our time has just run out, so appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Sloan, as well. And thank you. We're going to be back next weekend with a new group of interviews with Teachers of the Year, so we hope you enjoyed this time. We'll see you next time.